Story 1.
My wife cheated with her own cousin for years, and I discovered the disturbing truth by accident. Okay, it's a lengthy one, so bear with me. This situation unfolded around 2 weeks ago, and I've shifted from complete trust in her to profound doubt. I met my wife when I was 19, and our love blossomed rapidly. She had a 4-month-old child from a previous relationship, and the father hasn't been in the picture since I've known her. Despite my childhood dream of being a father, a genetic disorder led us to opt for adoption, which suited me just fine. Since then, we've been living like an ordinary family every day. We got married last year. While she wasn't particularly close to her family, she did have a pair of cousins she was somewhat connected to. I enjoyed getting to know them, and they seemed like decent people. She mentioned that one of them, let's call him Max, tried to kiss her when they were 12 and 13, but she brushed it off as him being a foolish kid. We see him every Christmas, and he appears to be a normal guy. I liked him because, compared to her other family members, who are quite formal, he's down to earth. Recently, they've reconnected and attended a few family functions. Since we share one car and I needed it for work, he picked her up for these occasions. Nothing seemed unusual about it. After all, they are cousins. Her behavior didn't exhibit any obvious changes. However, randomly one night as I was watching TV, she came in and commented on my friendship with a female colleague from work. We're an open couple, typically unfazed by such things. For instance, she might remark on an attractive guy and make some sort of lewd remark, and I'd think nothing of telling her this woman was the new hire in the office. She didn't accuse me of cheating, but it felt like she was on the verge of it, which was a first. I bring this up because I've read that cheaters sometimes project accusations onto their partners. These family outings were legitimate. The entire family shares pictures of them on Facebook, and my wife sends photos from the events. There were 2 of these gatherings, and each time my wife came home, she seemed robotic. Our intimate life appeared normal, if not quieter than usual, but due to her depression, she occasionally becomes distant. When I asked if she was doing all right, she attributed it to her mood fluctuations. 2 weeks ago, she left for work, and since it was my day off, I puttered around the house, dropped our son off at school, and came home to check my email. On Facebook, I noticed a message from her cousin. We had recently discussed going to see a farm team baseball game, so I assumed he was getting back to me. The message read, "I'd like to see you on your knees." I was confused until I realized my wife was still signed in and he was addressing her. I wanted to confront him. I immediately rushed to read through their chat log, discovering his inappropriate advances despite her repeated statements like, "But I'm married," and "No, I'm married." These refusals seemed hesitant, as if she were saying no out of obligation rather than desire. I was disgusted and utterly shocked. However, since none of them mentioned anything happening yet, and she is denying him, albeit kindly, I can't exactly say she's cheating. When she got home and our son was put to bed, I confronted her about the situation. She instantly broke down into hysterics and tears, saying things like, "I didn't do anything. I didn't know how to tell you," and "I was just hoping he stopped." Both of us have suffered childhood abuse from family friends and attended years of therapy for it, and for that reason, we have very good communication skills regarding comfort, boundaries, and expressing ourselves about unwanted advances. I love her, and I wanted to believe her, but the way she didn't tell me and acted seemingly normal leads me to believe something else was going on. I told her I believed her, and asked if I could message him to tell him to back off and express my disgust, or if she preferred to handle it herself. Initially, she expressed that she would tell him that I knew and not to contact her, but her resolve cracked as she was confident this would just stop. I was furious about that, but didn't express it and told her that knowing she wasn't going to, I was going to give him a piece of my mind. This is my wife. And if she's being intimidated, I will end it. And if she's not being intimidated, she's cheating on me. So I messaged him. He saw it but made no reply. The wife insists I should have allowed her to handle the situation, but I explained there was no way I could stay silent in the face of this. She seemed to grasp my perspective and eventually acknowledged that confronting him was probably the right course, as she didn't know how to handle it herself. Everything appeared to return to normal, but days later, I came home to find her in tears. When I inquired about the cause, she said, "It's Max. You should have let me handle it. I messaged him yesterday and he won't talk to me." We revisited the conversation about my refusal to passively endure someone intimidating my wife. During the discussion, she gave me a look, brief but telling, leaving me with the impression that she didn't perceive it as pestering. We concluded the conversation, agreeing that I had handled it the way any man would. 2 days later, I'm getting to bed late, around 2 a.m., as I was finishing up some work. I overhear her on the phone with someone, laughing. This is unusual. She claimed it was her mom discussing something related to our kid's birthday, but I doubted the explanation. At this point, I've decided to play ignorant to observe the situation from a more comfortable vantage point. The next day, she's crying again, and I've reached my limit. She's been emotionally unstable for weeks now. When I inquire if it's about Max again, she reveals that she tried to call and apologize for not handling the situation herself, but he still isn't talking to her. I admit it, I snapped. I told her that either he was abusing her or she was cheating on me, and I caught them. I'll be on the couch tonight. Obviously, I wanted to believe her, but I'm not naive. I'm essentially lying here, waiting for some solid truth because it's increasingly feeling like something is amiss, and if that's the case, I'm about to go 95,000 megaton nuclear on the both of them. She goes to work in 6 hours. I plan to apologize for my outburst and ask her to sit down and talk tonight. It's Sunday, and our son typically stays the night with my parents every other Sunday. I'm not proud of it, but I believe it's in my best interest to do some snooping. If I find nothing, we will discuss what happened, when it started, how I can support her, and what steps we should take moving forward. I love her, and the idea that she's being intimidated by someone who should love her breaks my heart. However, if I discover something questionable or learn that she was complicit in any way, I'm ending the relationship immediately. I don't believe in marriage counseling for instances of infidelity, and even if I did, incest? There is no way I could look at her the same again. Update: I didn't sleep at all last night, and when she woke up, I prepared breakfast. I acknowledged that I shouldn't have exploded and suggested we sit down tonight to discuss things. Strangely, she agreed as if she wasn't initially upset, admitting she had likely been acting poorly. I emphasized that the aggravation she faced was particularly challenging since he is a family member, and she appeared to agree. Initially reluctant to snoop, the advice from many here convinced me to check her emails. Despite her composed demeanor this morning, I proceeded. The disgust, hatred, and anger I feel are beyond expression, leading to an inevitable divorce. An email titled Yummy revealed a picture of her cousin with nut on his face. The exchanges detailed his encounters with random gay men, referencing past reproductive experiences together, including a picture of an accessory for a reproductive body part captioned, "I still have our old friend." The subsequent repugnant conversation portrayed her in a dominating manner, insulting his reproductive body part size. Analyzing the dates, I realized this transpired a year ago. As I continued reading, it became evident, at least from the text, that they used to engage frequently but stopped after our marriage. We were together for several years before getting married. Later, she invoked the "I'm married" excuse, but it seems like it's his kink to be told he can't touch her anymore, which he probably enjoys. Raising her child, I feel betrayed. After years of adjusting my work schedule and passing up better-paying jobs to ensure I can watch him, I'm overwhelmed. I went outside, called my brother, explained the situation, and asked him to hold on to my weapon temporarily. Despite not being a violent person, my mental state fluctuates between wanting to damage him and myself. I won't act on these impulses, but I fear a breakdown and can't trust myself to behave rationally after this. I'm packing my clothes and checking into a hotel. These conversations have been printed, copies sent to myself, and when I have time, I'll uncover more evidence. Bought a pack of cigarettes despite quitting 4 years ago. Now I must schedule an appointment at an STD clinic because, according to their explicit conversations, part of his obsession involves unprotected lovemaking with other men. I've never used protection with my soon-to-be ex-wife due to her contraceptive device. Now I face months of anxiety awaiting AIDS test results. Knowing his work schedule, possibly due to my past employment at the same company, I contemplate driving down to see his wife with evidence in hand. There's no fixing this, no therapy, no hope, and I have no interest in entertaining an apology. I'm filing for divorce, and she will receive nothing. Despite not feeling depressed or sad, I harbor a hot ball of rage in my chest, momentarily cooled by cigarettes. I can't be near her or him, and though I asserted I'm not violent, I find myself yearning to confront both of them physically. Regarding the family outings, they were genuine. The entire family posts pictures on Facebook, and my wife sends photos from these events. There were 2 such occasions, and each time she returned home, she seemed robotic. Our intimate life appeared normal, if not quieter than usual, but due to her depression, she occasionally becomes distant. When I asked if she was doing all right, she attributed it to her mood fluctuations. Update: my stepson is not a result of incest. He bears a striking resemblance to his biological father. A paternity test was necessary to establish child support, and once confirmed, his father disappeared, having been heard from only once in the past 4 years. The past couple of days have been an emotional roller coaster. In summary, I discovered that my wife has been cheating on me with her cousin Max for an extended period. Given the duration, it might as well be considered her cheating on Max with me. I consulted a lawyer initially and then went directly to Max's home to speak with his wife. Understandably, she was heartbroken and disgusted by the incest revelation. During our conversation, I also informed her that Max was bragging to my wife about engaging in unprotected encounters with random internet men, sharing explicit photos with nut on his face. Despite my advice against it, she insisted on seeing the pictures and was deeply affected. Max, identifying as bisexual, frequently engaged with random guys. His wife believed he hadn't done this in well over a year, allowing him occasional outings to get it out of his system. Afterward, I stayed the night in a hotel where I spoke with my mother, brother, and father. My mother-in-law left numerous voicemails, begging me to discuss the situation. Ignoring them, I received multiple calls from my wife, which I chose not to answer, presuming she knew about my documentation efforts. She refrained from sending texts as a strategy I would employ in her position. Eventually, I called her and kept it brief, stating we would talk the next day. Upon returning home, my wife was emotionally distraught, attempting to hug me, but I declared it over. She vehemently denied any infidelity, suggesting I misinterpreted things and blaming Max's wife for spreading rumors due to their mutual hatred. At this point, I realized my wife thought I'd learned about the affair from someone else, unaware of my independent discovery. I then presented the evidence, papers containing explicit photos of Max, and a picture of a large accessory for a reproductive body part labeled "Our Old Friend." The documents revealed her engaging in a dominatrix role, instructing him in a power play scenario. She even asked him to send pictures after encounters, which was stomach-turning. Despite my openness to kinky activities, she shifted from sadness to explosive anger and complete hysterics when realizing I had discovered the affair and informed Max's wife. Her outburst included statements like, "You should have talked to me first," and "She's telling everyone this will ruin me." I exploded, reminding her that I had read a year's worth of texts and emails, and that she never once asked him to stop. I called her a degenerate, expressed concern about potential AIDS exposure, and despite her crying, declared our impending divorce. Subsequently, I called her father, urging him to come to my house as she shouldn't be alone in that state. I returned to my hotel room and saw that Max's wife had been texting me. She had done some intense digging on her own and found discussions about reproductive encounters they had from 2010 on freaking MySpace. She told me early on in our relationship that he once tried to kiss her at 13. Well, they were actually freaking at 16 or 15, or during a time when MySpace was still widely being used. I'll admit it, seeing it went on that far back was finally what broke me. I'm not big on emotional displays, but I broke down crying in front of his wife. She cried too. When that was over, I took her to the lawyer I'm seeing, and now one of his partners will be handling her divorce. Through all this, Max has been panicking and crying, trying to find out where his wife is, trying to talk to me, still after all this evidence string to ensure this is all some big misunderstanding. It turns out that Max and his ex-wife live in a house owned by Max's parents, and they have come down hard against their son, telling him he cannot stay there anymore and apologizing to their daughter-in-law, saying she's welcome to stay with their grandchild in that house for as long as she wants. He's basically disowned. Max's father even got it in his head somehow that Max was molesting my wife as a child, and that is why she is doing what she is doing today. She is his favorite niece, basically a second daughter, so Max, in effect, is on the lam because his old man wants him dead. My father, unprompted and wanting to help me, assured me he'd pay my hotel for the week. Today, I told my boss point blank, no filter, exactly what happened, and that I'm taking 2 weeks to sort my life out. He remarked about how awful his divorce was and told me to take whatever time I needed, and that he'll just tell everyone on the floor I've got a sick parent or something, which was sweet of him. Lying down in my hotel room now, missing a stepson I'll probably never see again. I raised him for 6 years, changed his diapers, bottle-fed him at 3 a.m., took time off work when he was sick, waited on him hand and foot after a nasty fall that broke his arm so his mother could sleep because she was working in the morning. The rest of this world could burn away to freaking ash, and I wouldn't blink or care, but the thought of never seeing him again rips away at me like nothing else. I need therapy. It's going to take a heck of a lot of talking to get through this. I'm not a self-destruction risk, so no worries there. I'm an atheist, so this is the only life I've got if I end it, that's it, LOL. Talking to my lawyer on the phone later, and we'll be meeting up with Max's soon-to-be ex again because, apparently, there's more I don't know. Got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and then 6 damn months of waiting for results. Update. Today is the day we've chosen to inform my son about the unfolding changes. It's not a conversation either of us looks forward to, but it's inevitable. Last night, I had a phone conversation with my soon-to-be ex, STBX, and her tone surprised me. Initially accepting of the divorce, she didn't resist. During the call, she teared up, attempting to explain her relationship with her cousin and insisting that during the years we were together, it was only random dirty texts, and nothing physical occurred. I sense a storm approaching, because now she insists on having my car. She argues that since I work 20 minutes from our current residence and she works an hour away, it's necessary. Considering this old rust bucket has only 2 good years left, I'm contemplating giving it up and getting a new car, as I'll need one anyway. However, I fear that acquiescing to this now might set a precedent for my entire life. Through this, I've realized I don't feel like leaving my apartment. Knowing she's moving in with her folks, I might wait until she's gone, likely in a week, according to Facebook, and then discuss the situation with my landlord. Due to COVID, he's had trouble filling some units, so he might welcome me sticking around. I had breakfast with my dad. While he approached the topic lightly, he essentially advised against writing anything that would obligate me to stay in my stepson's life. Despite not dismissing my stepson, he always makes time for him and spoils him on holidays, birthdays, and with random toys. He's a proud grandpa. His reasoning is to wait and see how my STBX behaves and if it aligns with what I want in my life. He reminded me that I passed on the opportunity to go to school to become a family man, and the family wouldn't hold it against me if I chose not to be a father anymore. They love my son, but they don't want to see me fall on my sword by tying myself to that crazy family for life. More or less, they'll support me no matter what I decide. Maybe consulting my therapist in 3 weeks will change my perspective, but currently, I'm adamant about remaining a father. Afterwards, I took Sherry to meet with Max. I didn't accompany her, as it might lead to trouble. Instead, I hung out in the Sonic drive-thru, listening to music, buying drinks a couple of times to justify my presence, and waiting for her to text me to be picked up. When it was over, she was somewhat worse off. Max blamed my STBX for the fact that things didn't end years ago, claiming the guys he alleged to have crazy hookups with were part of a fabricated dirty story with my STBX. If he's telling the truth, it was just the one guy he is boyfriend and he made up the rest as part of this dirty story. It sounds questionable, but for some reason, it seems true to me. Sherry was devastated, mostly because he appeared sleep-deprived, didn't acknowledge his daughter, and hadn't said anything about her until she brought up the subject. She was visibly upset, and I brought her home. However, she did well at keeping it together for the baby. Not wanting to leave her in that state, I stayed and helped prepare dinner. I showed her how to make improvised garlic bread and pasta. I learned that she sings a French language song to her daughter, and I was a little smitten with that. However, I also noticed that Sherry has some of my son's hand-me-down baby furniture, which truly highlighted how messed up this situation is. When I left, we shared a prolonged parting hug, no words. I received a kiss on the cheek, and I kind of rode that high for the rest of the night. The enormity of my life right now is challenging to grasp. I didn't think it was possible to be filled with such hate and anger while also feeling that. Fluffy. Update: it's been almost 3 weeks since my D-Day and over a month since my life took a drastic turn. I haven't delved into the state of my marriage in previous posts, but for today's therapeutic typing session, I'll touch on it briefly. If this is your first time reading my posts, the TLDR is as follows. I accidentally discovered on Facebook that my soon-to-be ex-wife was involved in a reproductive affair with her cousin Max. I informed Max's wife about the situation, leading her to expose our partners. Throughout this, Max's wife and I started casually dating due to discovering a mutual attraction. I filed for divorce yesterday, heading to the courthouse to speak with the bailiff or sheriff on the other side of the counter and complete the necessary paperwork. My STBX and I, aiming for a quick resolution, decided against involving lawyers and agreed on the division of assets without the need for mediation. We attempted to serve her at the courthouse immediately after I submitted the paperwork, aiming to avoid law enforcement serving her at her home or workplace. I'm usually level-headed, and surprisingly, my STBX, who is not typically calm, is equally eager to conclude this chapter. However, it turns out she can't be served the way we planned, leading me to drive her home to her folks. Despite all this, I inquired about how things were going. Her facade crumbled a bit, and through tears, she admitted she's doing fine with me gone. She only feels bad when my stepson asks for me, or expresses sadness about my absence. She confessed that she's been unhappy in our marriage since before we got married. It wasn't resentment or hatred, she just fell out of love with me. Our sex life, while both of us are active and have reproductive needs, lost its synchronicity a while ago. We both knew it, and we had several conversations in our marriage about it. I like to pursue, hate to be chased. She loves to pursue, hates to be chased. Something was bound to break, and we had several talks about this. For a while, we switched roles so we could both get what we wanted. But it eventually turned into me sacrificing my desires to only have lovemaking in the ways she wanted. Some things she wanted me to do, I never liked and never improved at, and seemingly out of spite, she rejected the things I excelled at. Meanwhile, she rarely, if ever, fulfilled my requests. As time went on, in the middle of our relationship, we had a female living roommate with whom we shared mutual attraction, under strict guidelines and rules. She became someone we frequently engaged with, providing a temporary fix. Despite our issues, the STBX and I were a good team, excelling in financial communication and parenting, always presenting a united front. We enjoyed the same movies, both being artistically inclined. I'm a writer, and she's an illustrator. We had a myriad of commonalities that made us best friends and a great team. But the reproductive problems persisted. While the third person was in the relationship, that tension disappeared, and we worked seamlessly together, as our frustrations and needs were met by a third party. Eventually, this third woman moved out, ending things on good terms, primarily because she wanted a boyfriend, and no guy would go in for a setup like that. Around this period, Max and Sherry moved into Max's parents' second home. They had been residing in Sherry's home state for a few years until he lost his job. According to the STBX, Max re-established contact with her during this time. Initially, they met up as ordinary cousins, but one day, she chose to share her frustrations, likely an invitation about her sex life leading to an affair. They would only meet up around family gatherings, using excuses to disappear. I recall instances when I couldn't find her. We got married around this time, so I can only assume it happened at our own wedding. At this point, I really don't feel like listening to this, and the STBX mentions that she is now seeing a therapist and wants to treat me like her priest in confession. Everything concerning their affair I was hearing for the first time. I guess it's good that I know the truth, but since it impacts my life in no way, there's really no point for me to be hearing it. She also tells me that the out-of-state aunt who died and she cried for a week over was actually her crying after Sherry called her to happily inform her she was pregnant. That means, at one point, I was actively holding my wife and comforting her as she cried over another man. I feel more betrayed now than when I discovered the texts. This revelation follows a weekend where I got to spend 2 whole days alone with my stepson. I had such a good time, and he did too, as it's the longest time we've been together since D-Day. He's 6 and likes Minecraft, so I got a console version for split-screen play. He mentioned missing me, but loves seeing his grandparents every day. They spoil him. So after this great weekend of video games and playing catch-typical dad stuff, I'm really positive about staying a dad. Until she drops all this new info on me. I've got to be real. I'm finding the whole idea of having to be around this woman for the rest of my life voluntarily something I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do. As a parent, I should be able to get over my own issues and keep a level head for the sake of the child. But given the circumstances, throwing in the towel becomes a more and more attractive idea. That, more than losing my wife, more than the betrayal, breaks my heart. I'm going to see him again Friday night and see if I can still fight through this. On the Sherry front, I'll keep it brief, as this is already way too long. Max stopped calling or taking calls from her days ago, and it turns out he's moved in with his boyfriend. He has a boyfriend. She's going to file for divorce before the week is over and consider her next move. Her brother arrives in 2 days to talk with her and stay for the week. With Max's parents' permission, we've changed the locks on the house because, as rumor has it, Max has been using something. I don't know what, but better to be safe. I installed a new chain and a deadbolt. Has never been known to be violent, but has also never been known to vanish for days on end. With the rumor being Hess into substances now, when it comes to my relationship with Sherry, we are quietly pursuing a romantic relationship. We're both equally aware that we could just be dealing with our trauma and that these feelings might not be 100% real or lasting. But if I can be allowed to be vain for a moment, it's the best lovemaking I've had in my life. I've never been more physically attracted to any of my previous partners, and I find myself at work daydreaming about her toward the end of the workday. I don't think I've ever had such a strong want for someone before, and all told, she tells me it's something mutual. I've been back to work this week, and both days she stopped by to bring me dinner she made, and that's darn near the cutest thing anyone's ever done for me. Once again, I feel like life is beating the crap out of me, while at the same time everything is going right.
Story 2.
I was shocked when college students caught my wife, a teacher, cheating with him on a hidden camera. I go by Andrew Baker, but my buddies call me AB, never Andy. There's always some annoying drunk or ignorant guy who tries to act too familiar and calls me Andy. So, Andy, what's your job? They ask. I respond, I create this cool little gadget that cops can use from 40 feet away to check for drunk people. They've even started attaching them to radars around town. That usually shuts them up, but in case you haven't figured it out yet, that gadget isn't real. It's clear that I have little patience for foolishness. Lie to me and things get worse. I'm a simple guy, not complex at all. I enjoy a straightforward life and find satisfaction in my work. I work as an engineer for a big national company with offices all over the country. I have friends, and while I'm not a heavy drinker, I do have an occasional beer. Honestly, I lean more towards nachos, but that's my battle. If I let it get out of control, I'll gain weight, so I make an effort to keep myself in decent shape for my age. I used to go sailing every chance I got, but having a wife and 2 young daughters takes up a lot of time. Eventually, I sold the boat. That was just one of the compromises I've willingly made over the years so I could have quality time with the people who really matter to me. I've been happily married to Karen for 25 years. She's a high school teacher. Our 2 daughters are now in college. Claire is studying at Brown University in Rhode Island, and her younger sister, Denise, is attending Boston University. I probably couldn't afford those expensive schools, but luckily the girls are dedicated students and secured impressive scholarships. Our home is in North Carolina, specifically an area known as the Research Triangle. It's centered around some excellent universities in Raleigh and is surrounded by top-notch high-tech companies. Living and working here is wonderful. I could tell you about Carolina barbecue, but it would just make me hungry. I was somewhat disappointed when the girls opted for colleges up north, but I understand they needed to explore beyond their comfort zone, and that's ultimately a positive thing. Our daughters are amazing, intelligent, funny, charming young women with strong moral values. I worry about their safety daily, but I trust their decision-making. Witnessing them grow up and take their initial steps towards independence meant that my wife and I could finally have some time for ourselves again. I had been looking forward to this stage for a while. With both girls away at college, I imagined returning home every evening to a loving wife who would focus her attention on me and vice versa. I pictured us rekindling our connection, leading to days filled with happiness. It was almost like being newlyweds once more. We could enjoy dinners out, attend plays and movies, and finally rediscover each other the way I'd always wished. However, reality didn't unfold exactly as I had envisioned. To be honest, looking back on that first year of having an empty nest, I noticed Karen undergoing changes. It seemed like her interests were shifting. While the shift was gradual, it became more evident with time. Initially, I thought these changes were her way of flourishing now that our daughters were no longer living with us. However, I eventually realized that what I was observing was a significant transformation in her values and priorities. Karen is an English teacher specializing in creative writing. To be fair, she's also a frustrated writer. Being a young mother and teacher, she never really had the chance to write as she wanted. During the summer and whenever she could spare an hour or two, Karen dedicates time to writing, but so far, not much has come out of it. She used to send her essays and short stories to literary magazines, only to accumulate a collection of rejection letters. The grand masterpiece she hoped for never materialized. I'll admit I do enjoy reading her writing, but as a writer, she's never gone beyond formulaic and sometimes overly dramatic stories. She has a romanticized notion of what a writer should be, and secretly, I suspect she's more attracted to the idea of being a writer than the actual writing. Nevertheless, if she's content, then I'm content too. Throughout most of our marriage, Karen has been a member of various writing groups. These are gatherings of people who come together to help each other by providing critiques, suggestions, and discussions on their work, aiming to improve each other's writing. Some of these groups have seemed genuinely productive to me, while others appear to be more like clubs of mutual admiration. Her last group, which was the one she belonged to when things fell apart, had elements of both. They took turns meeting at each other's homes, and during their meetings here, I'd try to give them space. I attempted to participate once, but Karen and a few others disapproved, so I stopped trying. Karen's current writing group consists of around 10 members, including both men and women. I'm fond of some of them, while others I could do without. Half of them are rather unremarkable, and the other half leave a strong impression when you meet them. For instance, Reggie, a woman, is heavily invested in writing histories and biographies. She conducts real research and writes books with a scholarly aspect while still aiming to engage readers. I've read all of her books and enjoyed them. Betty has a penchant for writing fantasy. I don't think she envisions herself as the next J.K. Rowling. She leans more towards the talking unicorn type. She's friendly, and her writing seems to be mainly for her own pleasure. Who can argue with that? Bill assumes the role of the group's know-it-all. A little of that goes a long way, but aside from that, he seems all right. Then there's Frank. I felt alarmed the first time I met him, and those alarms have continued to ring in my head ever since. When I met Frank, it was quite clear that I was being introduced to him rather than the other way around. He looked at me and asked, "So Andy, what's your profession?" I glanced at my wife, who gave me a slight frown and shook her head. I simply responded, "I'm an engineer." Did he offer a smile or more of a smirk in return? I mentioned that I'd given up attempting to engage with their group, preferring to stay somewhat hidden and unobtrusive, though not exactly out of earshot. When they visit, I'll often be in the next room, quietly working, or on the back porch with a window open, so I can hear their conversation until they forget I'm around. I noticed early on that when Frank talks with Karen, they seem to share private jokes, and a connection that makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes he boosts her ego, and other times it's as if he knows her inner thoughts in a way I don't appreciate. He references past conversations that seem to be only between them, and I get the impression that the rest of the group doesn't remember those moments. It's just a feeling, but I'm not fond of it, and I've told her so. She brushes off my concerns, and I've learned not to push the matter. I've made sure she understands my sentiments. The rest is up to her. The group follows a routine during their meetings. After their work session, they relax with some wine and unwind. It's during this time that I realize some of them are merely putting on an act. It happened in the middle of the spring semester, around early March, when the topic shifted to the lifestyles of true writers. Oh, all the famous writers were alcoholics. That's right, they wrote in the mornings and drank in the afternoons and evenings. It relaxes the mind and opens it up to new ideas. Then in the mornings, their creative thoughts start flowing, and they begin to write. In fact, the truly accomplished writers all experienced romantic relationships. That's what truly motivated them. That's what Frank was saying. Thanks for sharing, Frank. I'm starting to understand where you're coming from. That's when Karen's words hit me like a punch in the gut. Oh, absolutely. It's the intensity and the thrill of the unknown, the excitement of keeping it all hidden from everyone else. That's where the genuine inspiration is found. Some of them chuckled, while others didn't, so I convinced myself it was just a jest. Yet I kept an ear on their conversation for the rest of the evening. Maybe we should all have a wild night of passion sometime, and then we'll each write the next great American novel. That came from Bill. I couldn't quite figure out if he meant it humorously or not. Character flaws don't serve as the basis for exceptional writing. What truly builds outstanding stories are qualities like humanity, empathy, and confronting the mysteries of the unknown. I mentioned before that I liked Betty. Unforgettable stories are about overcoming challenges, striving for greatness despite all odds, and leaving the world in a better state than it was before. Well, perhaps if you conjure the right enchantment, we can avoid all the hassle. That was that jerk Frank again. To their disgrace, some in the group seemed to find that amusing. I'm not so sure Betty did, and I had a hunch Reggie didn't either. They carried on talking about writers' drinking habits and affairs, and I continued to eavesdrop without giving anything away. Then I caught an intriguing part of their conversation. Is anyone else planning to apply for the Illinois Writers' Workshop this summer? Frank was speaking once more. Oh, I already submitted my application. I'm keeping my fingers crossed they'll accept me. 6 weeks of just writing and discussing with fellow writers. It could really transform things for me. It was Karen, and this was the first time I had heard about it. Frank picked up on it right away. I'm sure they'll accept you. Your writing has shown so much improvement this past year. I believe you'll be admitted. I've applied as well, although I'm not as certain I'll get in. My internal radar for nonsense was off the charts. Seriously, Frank? When did you become so modest? I didn't like what I was hearing, but at this juncture I still cared deeply for and trusted my wife. When you've been married as long as we have, trust is fundamental. You don't question, is she up to no good? The thought doesn't even cross your mind. Marriage is a partnership, and your spouse is your other half. She's shown her commitment year after year, and all you truly desire is for her to find the success and happiness she deserves. Or at least that's what you believe. Then later on, it all crumbles when you discover your trust has been shattered. As time went by, I allowed myself to put aside that evening's overheard conversation. Just like I mentioned, I had full trust in my wife. Some younger guys might not get that, but after being married for over 20 years, trust becomes a way of living rather than just a choice. It was late April, and I was finishing up some gardening outside when I decided to call it a day and head indoors. As I reached for the kitchen door, I caught my wife talking on the phone saying, "I can't wait. 6 whole weeks without any responsibilities, no commitments, and no one waiting for me to get back." I perked up at that last part. I froze in place and listened. Absolutely. It's going to be the most self-indulgent 6 weeks of my life. I owe it to myself, and so do you. None of this sat well with me. I pushed the door open and entered the kitchen. Karen seemed startled. "Well, I have to run. Abe is here and I need to start preparing dinner." She hung up quickly. Who was that on the phone? "Oh, just Reggie. We were talking about school wrapping up soon." Like, hell it was, I thought. I wanted to question her about certain things she had said, especially that part about no one waiting for her to come home, but I sensed that the truth might be in short supply tonight. My mood darkened, but I made an effort to conceal it for the moment. Later that night, after dinner, the other shoe dropped. "Ab, you won't believe the fantastic news I received today. Remember that writer's workshop in Illinois I applied for? No, come on. You hardly pay attention to me." To be honest, I had heard about that workshop before, but that was only because I'd overheard her discussing it that night over a month ago. I don't recall you mentioning it. Yes, I did. I applied for a 6-week writer's workshop. It's from mid-June to late July at the University of Illinois. They have lectures by their professors, and they bring in accomplished writers for seminars and discussion groups. And then we do a lot of writing. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I got accepted. That sounds wonderful, honey. I'm sure we can manage it financially. Maybe I can take a little time off work and join you. I'd love to listen to those writers' talks. Her reaction seemed surprised. Oh, well, we can consider it. It's going to be a really intense 6 weeks, and I won't have much free time to spend with you. My instincts were tingling again. Well, you know I'm not demanding, and maybe I could be the coffee guy for the group. She offered a slightly nervous smile. That could be nice, dear. Let's see how it goes. I've been on the receiving end of such deflections before, and I knew what it meant. She was planning to ensure I wouldn't end up going to Illinois with her. I get the feeling you'd rather I didn't go with you. Oh no, it's not like that. I just worry you might find it dull. You're into computers and circuits, and this is just writers talking about big ideas. Bick. I didn't voice it, but mentally I was shouting it loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. I'm not unintelligent, honey. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just saying your mind leans towards details, while writers grapple with larger life questions. Big Bick. But I kept that thought to myself. I could tell when I was being sidelined. I'm sure you'll excel, she scoffed that night. Later that evening, after Karen had gone to bed, I logged onto the internet to review our phone records. AT&T offers that feature. All incoming and outgoing calls, along with text messages, are recorded. I examined the phone log, and the call that I had interrupted wasn't with Reggie, or if it was, it originated from Frank's phone. It's astonishing how quickly trust can crumble after a quarter-century of marriage when you catch your wife lying and discover her making plans to exclude you. Weeks passed, and she seemed consumed by discussions about the workshop. I attempted multiple times to discuss the idea of going with her or visiting at some point, but she dismissed the idea each time. Then she shifted from rationalization to manipulation. AB, I've got the most exciting news. I got you and Jake 2 tickets to a fishing camp in northern Canada in late June. You can take Jake, and both of you can enjoy fishing for those big brown fish you're always talking about. It was quite expensive, but I wanted to express my gratitude for your understanding about the writer's workshop, and I felt a bit guilty that you wouldn't be enjoying yourself, so I want you to go and have a great time. Then we can share our experiences when I return. I suspected something wasn't right. Thanks, dear. That was considerate of you. Honestly, I'd have a better time with you. Ab, we've been through this. It's just not logical. I'll be working throughout, and I'd feel bad neglecting you like that. I studied her face and eyes briefly, trying to interpret what I saw. Was it condescension? Thanks, honey. Canada sounds fun. My tone lacked enthusiasm. In my mind, I was plotting my options. A surprise trip to Illinois was at the forefront. Well, you could at least say it with a smile. Those tickets were expensive, and I want you to be happy. Sure, sounds fun. I headed down to the basement to tinker for the rest of the evening. Our house is old and has one of those floor grates in the hallway. It lets warm air flow from the furnace room and was the original way of heating the first floor. Initially, I made a point not to step on it accidentally, but over time I grew used to it and forgot about its presence. The phone is also in the hallway. I was quietly working in the basement, contemplating my next steps, when I overheard Karen making a call. Yes, I gave him the tickets. He's still hesitant. I don't know. I keep telling him he won't enjoy it. No, I can't just tell him not to come. I understand, and I want that too. But I want to stay married afterward. I just need him to give me some space to enjoy myself for a few weeks. I deserve it. I've earned it. Yes, I want those weeks with you as well. All right, let's wait a bit. I think he'll come around. Okay, baby. I miss you too. Write something great for me tonight. With that, she ended the call. I felt a lump in my throat. I'm not clueless. I recognize infidelity when I hear it. Either Karen was in an affair or considering one. Anything less, and she'd still have a lot of explaining to do. It took me 20 minutes to gather my thoughts, but I knew that for now, I had to become the kind of liar I've always detested, at least for the moment. I needed to keep my intentions hidden until I figured out my plan. I called upstairs and, in my most affectionate tone, said, "Karen, I'm heading over to see Jake and give him the good news." "Oh, that's great, dear. Enjoy." And just like that, I was out the basement door. I needed distance. Visiting Jake was merely an excuse. As I pondered it, I realized I needed someone to confide in, and Jake had been my closest friend since childhood. You're kidding me. Jake never beat around the bush. No way, I don't buy it. She'd never betray you, AB. Well, she's certainly working hard to keep me away from that workshop, and she's calling someone baby, and it's definitely not me. We just sat there silent. That's what most guys need from a buddy, just sitting together, sharing the pain. You need to have a conversation with her about this, Abby. You can't go through the next couple of months assuming the worst without knowing the truth. And what's she going to say? How much do you want to bet that when I checked the phone records tonight, it wasn't Frank she was talking to? It wasn't Frank she called baby. And it wasn't Frank she's plotting with? I'm not taking that bet. So what's your plan? I'm going to sit down and have an honest talk. That's what you do after being together for 25 years. I'll express my love for her, let her know I'm hurt that she doesn't want me to go with her, and I'll straightforwardly ask her what she's up to that she doesn't want me there. Do you think she'll tell you the truth? Nope, but I'll tell her the truth, even if some of it isn't what she wants to hear. She'll understand how much I love her. She'll know that cheating on me would end our relationship, and then she'll probably try to convince me that I'm imagining things and should just go fishing. I paused for a moment. By the way, I've got 2 tickets for a fishing camp in northern Canada in late June, and one's for you. Nice. Jake caught himself. I mean, I'm here to support you, buddy. I had to chuckle. I've always been sure where his loyalty lies. We chatted, shared our thoughts, and had a few drinks over the next 3 hours before I headed home. After dinner, I asked Karen to come sit with me in the living room, and I opened up about everything that had been bothering me. Well, almost everything. I held back a couple of things. Sweetheart, I've got some serious concerns. I don't believe you've been completely upfront with me about this writer's workshop. I overheard you discussing it with your writers group back in March. Yet you didn't mention it to me until you had already made plans to attend. I even overheard you talking about how affairs are common among great writers, and I must admit, I didn't find that amusing. You've been having conversations with Frank about your trip, but when I inquire, you give me false information and claim it's someone else. You're aware of my feelings about that guy. Then when you told me about getting accepted, you seemed purposely distant and discouraged me from being a part of it. I don't have to be there, but I wanted to share in this exciting journey with you. Instead of considering that, you made arrangements for me to be somewhere else without even discussing it with me. Just making a commitment on my behalf. It appears like you're trying to ensure that I won't be around while you're in Illinois. I don't think you've been completely honest with me, and I'm starting to question whether you've been completely faithful. AB, I've never treated you that way, and I would never be unfaithful to you. What's gotten into you? You're my husband, and all I want is for you to have a good time. It really hurts me that you could think something like that about me. I can't control how I feel or what triggers those feelings. You know I love you. I've loved you since we first met, but I can't just overlook the idea of betrayal. Is that what you're planning, Karen? Is this writer's workshop meant to be your escape from our marriage? That was the end of our conversation. No more understanding or affectionate talk. She exploded into yelling, and for the rest of the night, it was either shouting or silence from her. For the following week, it was all silence. She was using the silent treatment as a way to force me to back down, trying to push me to submit. However, it didn't work. In fact, it only strengthened my convictions. But I realized I wasn't making progress this way, so eventually, I allowed her to believe she had succeeded. If she was planning to cheat, there wasn't much I could do to prevent it. The phone conversation I overheard even suggested she might have already done so. Eventually, I thanked her for the trip to Canada, but my mood remained gloomy, and it didn't lift until the trip was over. Once she got what she wanted, she quickly changed her demeanor and acted like a loving wife to reinforce the behavior she wanted from me. It was as if she flipped a switch, and that only heightened my suspicion. I recognize manipulation when I'm on the receiving end of it. The Illinois Writers' Workshop was about 500 miles away, and I didn't know anyone there, so I asked a CO worker who he consulted when he suspected his wife of cheating. I followed his advice, and the person he recommended was based in Illinois. I reached out to them for assistance. The workshop's location was advantageous as it took place on a state university campus. The PI's operatives couldn't participate in the program, but they could move around the campus and observe the rooms as needed. The participants would dine in the campus cafeterias, visit local bars, and stay in a large dormitory with other students. This provided an opportunity for inconspicuous surveillance. Some of these students would actually be working for me, equipped with advanced devices. As the school year was coming to an end, our daughters decided to remain at their universities for the summer to work in research labs with their professors. This meant we were still empty nesters, and I made a concerted effort. I invited her to dinners, cooked at home, and took her to various shows. She seemed to enjoy everything, and I started to believe I was making progress. However, whenever I expressed my love for her, I sensed a dismissive, "I know" attitude from her. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. It wasn't that she had stopped loving me, she had simply taken me for granted. I was familiar, reliable, and her safety net. She felt assured that she could go away, seek excitement, take a break from our marriage, and I would be waiting when she returned. This realization led to my plans falling into place. The day she departed, I realized I couldn't leave things unspoken. We stood near the door as her shuttle for the airport arrived. Holding her tightly, I expressed my love and pleaded, "Please don't do anything that could ruin us." In response, she shot me an irritated look and retorted, "I'm tired of you not trusting me. When I return, we'll have a serious conversation about this." She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, grabbed her bags, and headed toward the shuttle. She drove away without a single glance back at me. At that moment, I felt certain my marriage was coming to an end. After 25 years and our 2 grown daughters, it seemed our relationship was fading away without much of a fuss. The private investigator carried out his job effectively. According to him, they didn't bother hiding their actions as they were in an unfamiliar place. Upon arrival at the workshop, Karen must have removed her wedding rings on the plane, as they were absent from her finger. She openly claimed to be recently divorced, and my wife and Frank immediately became inseparable. They were constantly together, sharing kisses, holding hands, and acting like infatuated high school students. My PI ingeniously placed a small video camera in the dormitory hallway where they stayed. Though Karen and Frank each had their own assigned room, they only used one of them. Occasionally, they used her room, sometimes his, but always they spent the nights together. I was already aware of what was transpiring in those shared dorm rooms. Yet, my PI and his team went to great lengths to confirm my suspicions. One evening before it got dark, my wife and Frank retired early. 2 operatives, appearing like typical college students, sat against the hallway wall, discreetly slipping a miniature fisheye camera beneath the door. This device captured a 20-minute video of Frank in action. The video quality was surprisingly clear, and when he finished, it was evident he hadn't used protection. That was the final straw for me. My decision was clear. I was done with this marriage. Anything else the team uncovered was just additional evidence to solidify my stance. My private investigator kept me updated regularly, but after that initial week, her destiny was clear, and my choice was made. Starting from the early days of her workshop, I used my time to put my plan into action. I aimed to become a vanishing presence, almost like a ghost. When she returned, I would have disappeared, and there would be no going back. No lies, no ultimatums, no lengthy talks, explanations, justifications, or attempts to mend things. There would only be divorce. My marriage had come to an end. Love doesn't fade quickly, but what's love without trust? A future can't exist with a cheating wife. Some might argue that my solution was feeble. They could suggest she deserves physical punishment, utter embarrassment, and complete destitution. However, in the end, the law would prevent me from pursuing any of that, and I had no intention of ruining the rest of my life by seeking such vindictive revenge on my unfaithful wife and her lover. My revenge would be taking away the one thing she always relied on, the steady presence that supported her, consoled her, uplifted her, and motivated her. I was taking myself away. Frank wasn't a worthy catch. He couldn't provide what she needed long-term. Where would a divorced 50-year-old mother find love and emotional stability? I wasn't concerned. She wouldn't be my concern any longer. Every few days, my private investigator would send me more pictures, more videos, and more evidence of betrayal by the person who promised me loyalty above all else. The reports were difficult to read, and the photos and videos were even more painful to watch. The audio recordings were the hardest to bear, especially when they discussed me. He's always texting me about the fish he's catching and how amazing it is up there. He thanks me nearly every day, she said with a laugh. He's clueless, Frank joined in the laughter. Keep him in the dark, treat him like a mushroom, and you are free from his annoyance. He might as well enjoy himself for now. When I return, I'll confront that nerd about his accusations. Or how dare he keep accusing me of cheating. But you are taking a little break from our marriage, right, beautiful? Or is that another woman sharing my bed every night? She actually giggled at that. What a maybe he's onto something, but I won't tolerate it. I'm a writer, damn it. And he's holding me back with his circuits and computer jargon, his millimeters and micro thingamajigs. What does he understand about big ideas? I pondered various revenge tactics. I realized that none of those options would truly satisfy me as long as my life remained connected to hers. Only one choice remained, so I began the process of distancing myself from her. I had an open conversation with my boss explaining everything. He understood, having gone through something similar himself not too long ago. He arranged to transfer me to our company's office in Portland, Maine. I found the idea appealing. I was familiar with the people there. They were skilled and professional, and I enjoyed their company. The town and the state both appealed to me. I scheduled movers to transport half of the furniture and all my personal belongings up north. I ensured my car was in good shape for the journey. Then I consulted with a lawyer to initiate the divorce proceedings. As for financial matters, Karen had her own insurance and retirement account. I removed her name from all my assets and made my daughters the beneficiaries. I signed a quit-claim for the house, granting it to her in exchange for no alimony. She would keep her car but needed to handle her own insurance. I planned to handle the bank accounts and credit cards closer to the end, keeping my intentions discreet. From that moment forward, I focused on reinforcing my resolve. What I mean is this: I attempted to call her to inquire about how the workshop was progressing and to express my love. I believed that hearing her lies would strengthen my conviction that my actions were justified. She didn't disappoint. In less than 2 minutes, she answered with enthusiasm, declared her affection, and hurried off to dinner. My private investigator later informed me that Frank was right beside her, exchanging knowing glances and mocking gestures, which only affirmed my decision. It became evident that she treated the situation as a joke, confirming that I was on the right path. Subsequently, I chose to communicate with her through text messages instead of phone calls, as I wasn't sure I could keep my emotions in check over the phone. I would update her about successful fishing trips, but in truth, I sent Jake and his wife on those outings. They had a great time. Jake made a wise choice in his spouse. I did pay them a farewell visit before my departure, and they promised to come see me. As her 6-week workshop drew to a close, I concluded my final tasks. A friend who's a real estate agent gave me a for sale sign to place in the front yard. I couldn't actually sell the house without her consent, especially since I had already transferred ownership to her, but she was unaware of that detail. When she returned home, the sign would be the first thing she noticed. I changed the locks on the house to make it feel less like her residence. I selected certain photos from her trip, including explicit stills from the video taken beneath Frank's door, and compiled a copy of the PI's report. I left all of this on the dining room table to ensure she was aware that her actions had been uncovered. Most of my belongings had already been moved by the movers, who would store them until I was ready. I only carried 2 suitcases, my briefcase, laptop, and guitar with me. My guitar was a must. I couldn't entrust something so precious to anyone else. While Frank might be involved with my wife, I cherished my guitar deeply. My initial plan was to depart the next morning, knowing she wouldn't return until later that night. This way, I'd be long gone when she arrived. However, I had a change of heart. The night before, I wanted her to experience the pain right away, while she could only wait and worry until her return. I sent her an email containing 3 carefully chosen photos of her and Frank, along with the words, "Divorce you. I divorce you. I divorce you." I opted for one photo where they were nearly intimate on the dance floor, clearly showing she wasn't wearing her engagement and wedding rings. The second image captured them walking into his dorm room while holding hands. The third was a screenshot from the dorm room video showcasing her face clearly. I anticipated she would see these images and hoped it would tarnish her final romantic night with Frank as they frantically searched for cameras that were already removed. Subsequently, I turned off my phone. Leaving the house that had been our family home for countless years was a mix of pain, uncertainty, and newfound freedom. It felt like the most challenging, uncertain, and liberating moment of my life all at once. In essence, my wife was gone from my life. I didn't know the when or the why, but it was as if she had died, even if I hadn't caused it myself. The woman who remained, resembling my wife, was a stranger to me, someone I didn't recognize and didn't wish to reconnect with. I was embarking on a fresh start, facing an unknown path ahead. Amidst the deep sense of loss, there was an odd sense of liberation. The weight of deceit, betrayal, and belittlement was lifted off my shoulders, if only temporarily. The only cost was that half of my life was now inaccessible. Though it was late, my mind was racing, so I drove for about 100 miles along the quiet highway, lost in thought until I found a hotel for the night. I wasn't looking for a chain hotel, I wanted a genuine local breakfast place. I sought something authentic. Eventually, I found it and savored what could be my last plate of grits for a considerable while. As I savored those grits, my thoughts shifted, and I began to reconsider my journey to Maine. This marked the start of my fresh beginning, and I had a lengthy drive ahead of me. I could speed up my trip to Maine, escaping my problems, but I had a 2-week window before work started. Why hurry? I required time to calm my thoughts, come to grips with her betrayal, and leave the past behind. I chose to take it slow, relishing the scenery during my northbound drive, and engaging with each state and its residents as I passed through. This week would be my transition from my old life to my new one. I intended to pamper my senses, including my taste buds, to cleanse myself of the ugliness and mistakes of my past and get ready for a fresh start. The rest of the day was spent wandering around Williamsburg amidst the summer crowds. I explored the talents of skilled artisans and craftsmen. Despite not having a reservation, I managed to find a place to stay. It wasn't until after a light dinner and settling in for the night that my thoughts returned to my failed marriage. Around that time, she was likely returning home. I wondered how she'd react upon seeing the for sale sign on the front yard and realizing her keys no longer opened the door. The next day, I headed north and drove along the back roads toward Annapolis, Maryland's capital. I passed through small towns and historic plantations along Virginia's ancestral rivers like the York, Rappahannock, and Potomac, which flow into the Chesapeake Bay. There was a single stretch of road ahead, leading me toward my future. I would follow that meandering path as it guided me away from betrayal and toward a fresh chapter in my life. I sat in my hotel room in downtown Annapolis, and I finally powered on my cell phone. As expected, it was filled with numerous missed calls, emails, and text messages. Most of them were from Karen, while a few came from friends. I read and listened to all of them. Even though it was tough, it was a necessary step. Initially, Karen was attempting to convince me that things weren't as they appeared. Yeah, right. Those were the messages she sent from Illinois before she returned home and saw the rest of the photos and read the PI's report. Meanwhile, my friends were informing me that Karen was reaching out to everyone in a bid to locate me. Little did she know, she was looking in all the wrong places. Jake and his wife were aware, but I chose to keep the others in the dark intentionally. I would let them know once I had settled. I was already aware that I couldn't continue being a ghost forever. The 2 calls that got me concerned were from my daughters. Karen had contacted them in an attempt to find out my whereabouts. I had purposely not told them about my decision to leave their mother, as I wanted to do it face to face. However, I couldn't let them worry, so I spoke with my daughters and calmly explained the situation to them. They were upset and found it hard to believe that their mom could do such a thing. So I sent them the same pictures I had sent Karen the night I left home, along with the PI's report for them to read. After that, they pledged not to inform their mother about my actions. There was one more missed call. My lawyer informed me that Karen had been officially served with divorce papers. Now she knew I meant business. He also shared that Frank's wife had received a complete set of photos, videos, and audio recordings from his 6-week workshop. That was a dose of karma for Frank. On the 3rd day of my journey, I drove through northern Maryland, and with a lot of excitement, I finally reached New Jersey. Well, not exactly. I crossed into New Jersey but didn't stop until I had reached Connecticut. Once in Connecticut, I took a few hours to explore some historic towns along the coast. I didn't have a specific goal, but the architecture was so distinct from what I was used to in North Carolina that I felt a strong sense of being in a new place, both physically and emotionally. And don't tell the government, but I spent an hour in Groton trying to spot as many submarines as I could. Those black fish are quite stealthy. While gazing along the shore, I was reminded that when they refuel, those nuclear submarines, they cut a hole in the hull to refuel the reactor and then weld the hull back together. Was that a metaphor for my situation? Could Karen's betrayal, which tore a hole in my heart, be the first step in re-energizing my life? Could I heal myself once I embarked on my new journey? As I woke up the next day, I knew it would be the most challenging day so far. After a hearty breakfast of eggs, bacon, toast, and a strong cup of black coffee, I braced myself for a difficult conversation with my eldest daughter, Claire, at Brown. The drive there didn't take long, and I arrived at her dorm around late morning. We decided to delay our conversation a bit so that she could pretend to be cheerful for an hour or two. She showed me around the campus and then took me to the cafeteria, where she introduced me to her friends. They were exactly the kind of young men and women I had hoped she would be surrounded by. They were friendly, attentive, and seemed to provide mutual support. On our way out, I took Claire's roommate aside and informed her that Claire was going to have a tough day. I asked her to look after my daughter. She replied, "Of course, Mr. Baker. She shared with us last night. We're all here for her." Yes, my daughter had chosen her friends wisely. Claire and I spent hours in her dorm room having a long conversation. I shared with her photographs and played audio recordings that I never expected to share with one of my children. Her emotions shifted between sadness and anger. "I can't believe Mom would do that. Is she even the same person who raised us? What kind of disgusting person has she turned into?" I had to intervene at that point. Even though I understood her sentiment, "Claire, regardless of what she's done, she's still your mother. And remember, it's me she's betrayed, not you. Sorry, Dad, but she shattered my only family. This is absolutely affecting me. I couldn't dispute that. Throughout the afternoon, we continued our conversation, and I outlined my plans to her. I encouraged her to gather her friends, and we went out for dinner at the best place in town, or at least the best within my budget. It seemed like everyone enjoyed a break from the usual dining hall food. I shared stories of my own college dining experiences, and I think it gave them a newfound appreciation for their current situation. I stayed at a local hotel that night, and the next morning I had breakfast with Claire, held her in a tearful hug, and then headed north to Boston to repeat the process. Claire must have informed Denise, as her reaction was much more composed than her older sister's. There was still disappointment and anger, but less surprise. She requested to see the evidence, and I showed her. Coincidentally, her mother called while we were talking, and I gave her the universal sign for "No, I'm not here." I shook my head, gestured frantically, and mimicked a throat-cutting motion. She understood. Denise was always the more level-headed one in the family. Then she did something I thought I'd never witness. She said, "Dad called last night, didn't he? Is it true you've become a woman who cheats on her husband and lies about it, becoming involved with multiple partners?" I was taken aback. I wanted to scold her for speaking to her mother like that, but at the same time, I couldn't deny the truth in her words. "You heard me, Mom. You spent 6 weeks being involved with someone else while Dad was alone at home. Was it worth it, Mom? Was it worth losing your marriage over?" Wow, my daughter has quite the way with words. Note to self, don't get on her bad side. There wasn't much more to discuss. Denise informed me that her mother was mostly in tears and attempting to offer excuses, but my daughter wasn't buying any of it. Later, I took Denise and her friends to a Thai restaurant called the Elephant Walk, not far from campus. Just like her sister, Denise had chosen her friends wisely, and dinner was a pleasant affair. On our way back to campus, one of her friends said, "Mr. Baker, Denise told us about what you're going through. She was really upset last night, but we supported her. Maybe you could visit us again, and we'll treat you to the cafeteria." That elicited laughter from the group. I mean, well, actually, maybe we can find a better place than that. This sparked more giggles, and we laughed all the way back to her dorm. I found a place to stay for the night, had breakfast with my daughter in the morning, and on the 7th day of my journey, I continued heading north. I departed Boston and found myself just 2 hours south of Portland. My focus had shifted from my soon-to-be ex-wife to my daughters. They were growing into strong, principled young women, and I couldn't be prouder of them. I now realized they would navigate the upcoming divorce better than I had anticipated. The challenge on this day was leaving these two amazing gems behind, with no certainty of when I'd see them again. As it turned out, my worries were unnecessary. I wasn't prepared to confront the reality of starting my new life just yet, so when I reached Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I turned west and drove towards the White Mountains and the Presidential Range. I entered the White Mountains and took the cog railway up to the summit of Mount Washington. Standing there, gazing across the expanse to the smaller peaks of the White Mountains and surveying the green pine forest below, feeling the cold Arctic winds that seemed out of place in the early days of August, I finally sensed a rebirth within myself. I was alone, but at last I was standing tall. I had gone through a transformation, leaving behind the challenges and regrets of my old life, and now I was ready to embrace the new chapter and all its potential. I stood on higher ground, prepared to embark on a fresh journey. Everything I desired lay ahead. The next morning, I ordered a plate of pancakes topped with real maple syrup. I was in maple syrup country now, and that would be the case for years to come. Feeling rested and eager, I got back into my car and drove to Portland. I arrived in the mid-afternoon, so I decided to touch base with my new boss to let them know I had made it. I was already acquainted with about half of the office staff, and I received a warm welcome. It felt reassuring. They were the first cheerful, uncomplicated faces I had encountered in a week. My new boss, Henry, gathered the office for introductions. I had a quick tour of the workplace, but not before everyone agreed on where we would all go for dinner. I assumed it would be a downtown restaurant, but to my surprise, we ended up at Henry's house, grilling steaks and enjoying all the accompaniments. I know I should have savored lobster in Maine, but there was no rush for that. This was more about reintegrating into society while enjoying some exceptionally good steaks and truly outstanding local beer. They inquired about my story. What was a guy from the South doing uprooting his life and moving to Maine at this stage? So I shared my tale. I omitted the graphic details but provided enough for them to understand. I concluded with a small request. I might get a bit short-tempered in the next few weeks. It's not my usual demeanor, but I have a lot to process. I hope that if I act out, you'll call me out and tell me to cool it. I could use some gentle pushback now and then. Unexpectedly, every woman there hugged me and gave me a peck on the cheek, while every man put an arm around my shoulder. "We're here for you, AB." That's all they said and all they needed to say. Later that night, as I settled into my hotel room, I powered up my cell phone once again. Both of my daughters had sent supportive texts. They must have shared my number with their friends because I had received about 8 or 10 additional texts from the young men and women who appreciated the dinner and wanted me to know they'd be there for my daughters. Those kids are truly wonderful. A number of friends continued reaching out, so I made the decision to connect with all of them and explain the situation so they could stop fretting. I didn't reveal my location. That would come later. I simply told them why I had left, despite their initial reluctance to believe. I sent them the same 3 photos I'd sent Karen, and informed them that I had even more incriminating evidence if they needed further convincing. I pondered it, but honestly, I couldn't find a single reason to shield her from her own choices. I had tried, and it hadn't worked, so let the truth come out. In due time, I received messages of love and support from each of them, and I assured them I would stay in touch. It was becoming increasingly apparent that my notions of becoming a ghost were just wishful thinking. Too many people cared about me, and that's certainly a positive thing. I went through the remaining text messages from Karen and listened to the missed calls. Eventually, she came clean and confessed, though her confession was mixed with strange bursts of anger. She managed to blame me one way or another for her actions and for everything that had unfolded. Well, that's just ridiculous. I sent her a text saying I'd call her the next day around noon. It had to happen sooner or later. Let's just say the conversation was far from satisfying. She swung between blame, guilt, and denial. She was sorry. Frank's influence was strong over her. I was suffocating her. It was my fault because I worked too much. She even had the audacity to claim that nothing serious happened between them. They were just messing around. I almost burst out laughing when she tried to convince me she was only searching for her creative inspiration. She went so far as to accuse me of turning our daughters against her, as if her own actions hadn't accomplished that without any assistance from me. When she finally fell silent, I laid it out for her in a straightforward manner. She had conspired with Frank to betray me, resisted my efforts to salvage our relationship, carried out the betrayal, and now she was facing the consequences. I no longer cared about the whys. When I hung up, she was still crying and pleading her case. I was done with her. There was no turning back. I knew too much. I located a simple yet comfortable 2-bedroom apartment in an older building, conveniently close to the office. I thought I could use the exercise from walking and initially considered it a temporary arrangement, but my perspective quickly shifted. Living simply in town, avoiding the extra responsibilities that come with owning a house, and having a small coastal cottage for weekends seemed like a good plan. Then I thought, why stop at a cottage? I could get a boat, keep it docked in the harbor, and that could be my seaside retreat. By the time I sorted all of this out, it was early fall. I thought I'd lead a solitary life, but it hasn't turned out that way. I actually spend more time with my daughters now than when I lived in Raleigh. They come up for a weekend every month, often bringing friends along. During those 36 hours, my apartment buzzes with activity, and I usually treat them to dinner. Once they're gone, I do crave the quiet, although I miss them as soon as they leave. Surprisingly, a few of my friends have visited, and the rest plan to come when the weather's better. I'm living alone, but I don't feel lonely. I've made new friends at work and through my adventures. The sailing community is lively and inclusive, and I've met intriguing women. However, I'll stay respectful and well-behaved until the divorce is finalized. Even though the divorce will be official soon, Karen still reaches out to me. She never truly repents and prefers to downplay the situation. All she says is, everyone does it. It doesn't mean anything. But it does. The intimacy carries weight, and the deceit and manipulation matter even more. I thought about explaining this to her, but people change, and I no longer see the point. Truthfully, my life isn't fully separate from hers. With 2 daughters and many mutual friends, complete detachment is unlikely. Nevertheless, with 600 miles between us, I no longer live with the daily pain of rejection and betrayal. She used to be the center of my life until I was no longer in hers. Now I'm forging my own path and creating my own future. Several positive outcomes emerged from this situation. To begin with, I genuinely enjoy living up here. I'm going through my first Maine winter, which is a bit of a shock, but if others can handle it, so can I. The early darkness in this region actually makes indoor gatherings feel cozier and brighter. I've started searching for a boat and found a place with moorings not too far from town, so I'm looking forward to spring when I can work on splicing lines and applying varnish. The local restaurants are good, the microbreweries are fantastic, and the people are authentic. There's a variety of music, dances to learn like contra dancing, and I'm still discovering surprises. I believe life will turn out well for me after all. Is my heart fully healed? Not yet, but time has its way of healing wounds, and I'm confident in the better life that lies ahead. Oh, and as a side note, Frank's wife seems to be as old-fashioned as I am. She kicked him out of the house and divorced him. What's even worse, both Karen and Frank are still unpublished. Thank you.
Story 3.
Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The late afternoon sun beat down on the Richardson Tower construction site as Jeff Calloway made his final rounds. Steel beams soared into the Austin skyline, a testament to months of careful planning and relentless execution. Workers nodded respectfully as he passed, his reputation for fairness and competence earning their trust over the challenging project. Mr. Calloway, Mike Rodriguez, one of the site supervisors, jogged up to him. We've got those revised blueprints for the East Wing modifications. Jeff adjusted his hard hat, studying the papers Mike handed him. 20 years in construction management had taught him to spot potential problems before they became disasters. His eyes caught a minor discrepancy in the measurements. See this? He pointed to the numbers. Could cause issues with the support structure. Get engineering to revise it before we proceed. Mike's eyes widened. Good catch, sir. Could have cost us weeks of delays. That's why we check everything twice. Jeff handed the blueprints back. Make sure the crew knows about the change. I want everyone on the same page tomorrow morning. As he walked to his truck, Jeff's phone buzzed. A text from Darlene. Coming home early today. Need to talk. He frowned. In 20 years of marriage, need to talk had never meant anything good. But they'd weathered rough patches before. That's what marriage was, working through the hard times together. The drive home gave him time to reflect. He'd met Darlene in their senior year of college, back when he was still an engineering student with big dreams. She'd been studying business, full of ambition and charm. They'd clicked immediately, understanding each other's drive for success. Traffic crawled along Mopac Expressway as his mind wandered to their early years. The tiny apartment they'd shared while he worked his way up from junior site manager. The proud day they'd bought their first house. The vacations they'd planned and saved for. 20 years of building a life together. Brick by brick, his phone buzzed again. Shane Parker, his best friend and the city's top divorce attorney, wanted to grab drinks this weekend. Jeff texted back a quick, sure, usual place. Before pulling into his driveway, the two-story colonial house stood as a monument to their shared success. Fresh paint from last spring's renovation gleamed in the setting sun. The garden Darlene had obsessed over for 5 years bloomed with carefully tended roses and native Texas wildflowers. Then he noticed her car in the garage as he approached the front door. Strange. She usually taught her yoga class until 7 on Thursdays. The students at that upscale gym paid premium rates for her expertise. She'd never missed a class before. The door's familiar creak welcomed him home. But something felt off. The house was too quiet, too still. No music playing from the kitchen, where she usually prepared dinner. No sounds of her talking on the phone with her sister, Emily. Dari called out, setting his things down in the entryway. The silence that followed made his stomach tighten. That he found her in the kitchen, standing rigid against the granite countertop they'd picked out together during their renovation 3 years ago. Her fingers traced the edge repeatedly, a nervous gesture he'd never seen before. She wouldn't meet his eyes. She wore her designer yoga outfit, the one she'd splurged on last month. But her hair wasn't swept back in its usual post-workout ponytail. She hadn't been to class at all. Hey, he said, keeping his voice light despite the growing unease. You're home early. Is everything okay? Darlene's shoulders tensed further. Her perfectly manicured nails, a fresh set, he noticed, continued their restless movement along the counter's edge. We need to talk, Jeff. Her voice was flat, rehearsed that he leaned against the doorframe, studying her. In 20 years of marriage, he'd learned to read her moods like blueprints. This wasn't just bad news. This was something worse. About? She drew a shaky breath. I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About my life. Jeff waited, his face carefully neutral. Years of handling crisis situations on construction sites had taught him the value of silence. Let people fill the void themselves. I'm not happy, Jeff. The words hung in the air between them, like suspended debris after an explosion. Still, he waited. I want a divorce. The statement hit him with the force of a wrecking ball, but years of managing disasters had taught him control. He didn't flinch, didn't let his expression change. Inside, his mind raced through 20 years of shared history. Their wedding day, the house hunting, the vacations, the fights and reconciliations, all the small moments that had built their life together. How long have you been feeling this way? His voice remained steady, professional almost. Darlene finally looked at him, surprise flickering across her features. She'd expected anger, tears, pleading anything but this calm inquiry. She faltered, then straightened. A while now. I feel trapped, suffocated. This isn't the life I wanted. Jeff absorbed the words, each one another blow to the foundation of everything he believed in. The life you wanted, he repeated slowly. And what life is that exactly? She began pacing, her movements jerky and agitated. I don't know. Something different. Something more exciting. I'm 39, Jeff. Is this all there is? Work, home, dinner, bed, repeat? I need space. Freedom. Freedom, he echoed, the word tasting bitter. To do what? Darlene stopped pacing, her back to him. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. To see other people. The rage that surged through Jeff was immediate and volcanic, but he contained it. In construction, losing control meant people got hurt. He'd learned to channel anger into focus, fury into precision. Are you already seeing someone? The question came out clinical. Detached or silence was answer enough. Jeff pushed off from the doorframe, taking measured steps into the kitchen. How long? It's not serious, she said quickly, turning to face him. Just flirting. Maybe a few drinks. I haven't. Don't lie to me, Darlene. His voice remained level, but something in his tone made her flinch. You wouldn't blow up our marriage over some harmless flirting. How long? She wrapped her arms around herself, defensive. 2 months. 2 months. While he'd been pulling 14-hour days getting the Richardson project back on track, while he'd been planning their anniversary trip to Hawaii, while he'd been building their future, she'd been dismantling it piece by piece. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too confined. The granite countertops, the stainless steel appliances, every careful choice they'd made together now seemed like props in a play that had just ended. Who is he? Jeff, please. I deserve to know who's worth throwing away 20 years of marriage for. Still calm, still controlled, but now there was an edge to his words sharp enough to cut. Darlene's chin lifted defiantly. His name is Tyler. He's a personal trainer in my gym, and he makes me feel alive again. Jeff let out a short, humorless laugh. A personal trainer. Of course. He turned away, bracing his hands on the kitchen island. And what does Tyler suggest you do about our house? Our savings? The life we've built. I don't want to fight about money, Darlene said quickly. I just want a clean break. A fresh start. How generous of you. The sarcasm was subtle, but cutting. And what exactly did you expect my response to be to all this? She moved closer, reaching out as if to touch his arm, but stopping short. I hoped you'd understand. That you'd want me to be happy, even if it's not with you. Jeff straightened slowly, turning to face her. His expression was unreadable, his eyes cold. If that's what will make you happy, Darlene, I won't stand in your way. Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by confusion. This wasn't the reaction she'd prepared for. Where was the begging, the anger, the drama she'd steeled herself against? You mean that? You want out? Fine. You want your freedom? Your exciting new life? Your personal trainer? Each question came out precise, measured. Then that's exactly what you'll get. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. Darlene hurried after him. Jeff, wait. Where are you going? He grabbed his laptop bag from the entryway. To call my lawyer. You wanted a clean break. Let's make it clean. The door closed behind him with a quiet click, far more unsettling than if he'd slammed it. Darlene stood in the foyer, victory and uncertainty warring on her face. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, so why did it feel like she'd just made a terrible mistake? Jeff spent that night in the Hilton downtown, his mind clear despite the magnitude of what had just happened. He sat at the hotel bar, laptop open, researching divorce attorneys. But he already knew who he'd call. Shane Parker hadn't just become Austin's most feared divorce attorney by accident. He'd earned his reputation by understanding that divorce wasn't about justice. It was about strategy. At exactly 8 a.m. the next morning, Jeff walked into the gleaming office building that housed Parker Legal. The receptionist recognized him immediately. "Mr. Calloway, Mr. Parker is expecting you. Would you like coffee?" "Black, thanks." He'd known Shannon, the receptionist, for years. Had attended her wedding to another lawyer in the firm. How many marriages had she seen end in these offices? Shane's corner office screamed success. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, courthouse views. But it was the framed divorce decrees on the walls that really told the story. Each one a battle won. A career built on the ashes of failed marriages. "Jeff." Shane stood from behind his massive mahogany desk, concern etched on his features. "Your message said it was urgent." "What's wrong?" Jeff took a seat, his posture relaxed despite the circumstances. "Darlene wants a divorce." Shane's eyebrows shot up. "What? You guys seemed fine at the firm's Christmas party." "Apparently not." Jeff's voice remained steady. "She's been seeing someone else. A personal trainer from her gym." "Jesus." Shane ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "How long?" 2 months. Jeff sipped his coffee. "She wants out. Says she doesn't want to fight over assets. Just wants a clean break." Shane started pacing, his legal mind already working. "And you're here because I want everything done legally and properly," Jeff replied, his voice clipped. "And because you're the best divorce attorney in Austin." Shane dropped into his leather chair, studying his friend. They'd known each other since college, been through countless ups and downs together. He'd never seen Jeff like this. Too controlled, too calm. "You're planning something?" It wasn't a question. Jeff met his friend's gaze steadily. "I'm planning to give her exactly what she wants. Freedom comes at a price." Shane leaned forward, a predatory smile spreading across his face. "Now that's what I like to hear. Tell me everything." For the next 2 hours, they went through every detail. The house valued at just over $1 million. The retirement accounts. The investment portfolio they'd built together. The vacation property in Colorado. "She thinks she's being noble, not fighting for assets," Shane said, making notes. "That works in our favor. We'll file first, push for a quick settlement while she's still in her fresh start mindset. Once reality hits, she might change her tune." "She won't," Jeff said with certainty. "Her pride won't let her. She needs to believe she's the one choosing this, taking control of her life. Let her keep thinking that." Shane pulled up documents on his computer. "I'll have the paperwork ready by this afternoon." "But Jeff," he fixed his friend with a serious look. "You know, most guys in your position would be a mess right now. Crying, raging, begging for marriage counseling. But you're different." "Because I understand something they don't," Jeff replied, standing to leave. "The best revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's letting them destroy themselves while you watch." Shane's eyebrows rose. "Damn, that's cold." He grinned. "I love it. Don't worry, friend. We'll make sure you walk away with everything." "Almost everything," Jeff corrected, heading for the door. "She can keep her personal trainer. For now." The next few weeks moved at lightning speed. Shane's team worked with ruthless efficiency, preparing documents, filing motions, setting up meetings. Darlene, caught up in her excitement for her new life, barely glanced at the paperwork. She hired a young attorney fresh out of law school, someone who was no match for Shane's decades of experience. In meeting after meeting, she agreed to terms that made Shane's eyebrows rise higher and higher. "The house goes to Jeff." "Agreed." "The investment accounts remain primarily with him." "That's fine." "The vacation property stays in his name. Whatever he wants." Shane pulled Jeff aside after one particularly one-sided negotiation. "She's giving away everything. Are you sure you don't want to let her?" Jeff cut him off. "She wants to play the magnanimous ex-wife?" "Perfect. Document everything." The final meeting took place exactly 6 weeks after that night in the kitchen. They gathered in Shane's conference room. Jeff, Darlene, both attorneys. The stack of papers between them represented the end of 20 years together. Darlene wore a new outfit, her hair freshly styled. She kept checking her phone, obviously eager to be done. Her young attorney looked uncomfortable. Clearly aware he'd failed to protect his client's interests, Shane laid out the final documents. Just to review one last time, the house and majority of assets go to Mr. Calloway. Mrs. Calloway keeps her personal accounts, her car, and her personal belongings. Both parties waive any right to future claims or alimony. Is this understood? Yes, Darlene said quickly, reaching for the pen. Mrs. Calloway. Shane's voice carried a warning tone. Are you absolutely certain you don't want to review the terms one more time? She shot him an irritated look. I know what I'm doing. Jeff watched as she signed her name on page after page, dismantling their life together with each flourish of the pen. When she finished, she pushed the papers toward him. That's it, she asked, staring at the documents. We're really done? That's it, Shane confirmed, gathering the papers. Congratulations. You're both officially single. Darlene stood quickly, adjusting her designer purse on her shoulder. She glanced at Jeff, who hadn't moved from his chair. I hope you'll be happy, Jeff. He looked up at her then, his expression neutral, but his eyes hard as steel. Oh, I will be, Dar. I will be. She hurried from the office, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble floors. Shane watched her go, then turned to Jeff. You okay? Jeff stood, straightening his suit jacket. I'm perfect. She wanted her freedom? Well, now she's free to learn exactly what that means. As they walked out of the conference room, Shane shook his head. I've never seen anyone handle a divorce like this. No fighting, no drama, just surgical precision. That's because everyone else makes the same mistake, Jeff said, pushing the elevator button. They let emotion cloud their judgment. They fight to keep something that's already gone. I'm not fighting to keep anything. I'm building something new. Shane clapped him on the shoulder. Well, you've got a solid foundation to build on. The house, the assets. It's not about the money, Jeff interrupted, stepping into the elevator. It's about what happens next. What has happened next? Jeff's reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a man transformed, not broken, but hardened. Now, I watch her realize exactly what she threw away, and I make sure she can never get it back. The first thing Jeff did after the divorce was change everything. He started with the house. The master bedroom that had been their shared space for 15 years underwent a complete transformation. Out went the pastoral artwork Darlene had chosen, replaced by stark modern pieces. The floral bedding vanished, replaced by masculine charcoal and steel blue linens. He converted her walk-in closet into a home office, filling the space with a custom-built desk and state-of-the-art electronics. His colleague Mark whistled low when he came over to help move furniture. Man, you're not messing around, are you? No point keeping things that don't serve a purpose anymore, Jeff replied, dismantling the vanity where Darlene had spent countless mornings perfecting her makeup. Everything changes. The changes weren't limited to the house. Jeff joined Equinox, the high-end gym downtown, deliberately choosing one far from Darlene's usual haunts. He hired a personal trainer of his own, a no-nonsense former Marine named David who pushed him to his limits. You're not like my usual clients, David commented one day, spotting Jeff on the bench press. Most guys going through divorce just want to look good for dating. You're different. Jeff completed his set, the weights clanging as he racked the bar. I'm not doing this for anyone else. This is for me. The physical transformation was just the beginning. He threw himself into the Richardson Tower project with renewed focus, turning it into a showcase of efficiency and innovation. His team noticed the change. You've been putting in some serious hours, his assistant Rachel mentioned one morning, setting down a stack of reports. The client's thrilled with the progress. But are you sure you're not pushing too hard? Jeff looked up from his computer, where he'd been reviewing budget projections. I'm not pushing hard enough. We could do better. Under his intensified leadership, the project surged ahead. Weekly progress meetings became exercises in precision, with Jeff demanding excellence from every department. His reputation for competence evolved into something more, a driven perfectionist who accepted nothing less than the best. The results spoke for themselves. Richardson Tower was tracking 2 months ahead of schedule and under budget. The client was so impressed they were already talking about future projects, but it was the smaller changes that really marked his transformation. He updated his wardrobe, working with a personal stylist to replace his comfortable but dated clothes with tailored suits and designer casual wear. He got a new haircut, shorter and more modern. Even his posture changed, more confident, more commanding. Meanwhile, he watched Darlene's new life unfold through social media. She posted constantly pictures at clubs with friends, gym selfies with Tyler, inspirational quotes about living your best life and finding yourself. Tyler turned out to be exactly what Jeff expected, a muscled 20-something with tribal tattoos and a practiced smile. His Instagram was full of shirtless workout videos and promotional codes for supplements. In every photo with Darlene, he made sure to show off his physique. Jeff didn't react, didn't comment, didn't give any sign that he even noticed. But he observed everything, filing away details for future use. One evening, as he was leaving Equinox after a particularly intense workout, a familiar voice called out to him. Jeff? Jeff Calloway. He turned to see Renee Sullivan walking across the parking lot. His college girlfriend looked better than ever, fit, confident, with laugh lines that spoke of a life well lived. Her dark hair was shorter than he remembered, styled in an elegant bob that suited her face perfectly. Renee? He smiled, genuinely pleased to see her. I heard you were back in Austin. Been here about a year now. She gave him an appraising look. You look different. Good, different. Life changes. We adapt. He studied her in return. You're looking pretty good yourself. She laughed, the sound bringing back memories of late-night study sessions and weekend road trips. Divorce agrees with me, I guess. You remember Mark? Finally called it quits last year. I remember. He was always... Jeff paused, choosing his words carefully. An ass. Renee supplied helpfully. Yeah, he was... But hey, live and learn, right? She gestured to his gym bag. You work out here? A few months now. You? Just joined. New job's paying for the membership. Figured I might as well take advantage. She pulled out her phone. Hey, would you want to grab coffee sometime? Catch up properly. Jeff considered the invitation. 20 years ago, Renee had been his first serious relationship. They'd split amicably when their career paths diverged, her to law school in California, him staying in Texas for engineering. She'd been smart, independent, focused on her career. Everything Darlene had pretended to be. Coffee sounds good, he said, taking her phone to enter his number. How's tomorrow? Perfect. Mozart's at 3? They still have those amazing chocolate croissants. Some things never change. He handed back her phone, their fingers brushing briefly. It's good to see you, Renee. You too, Jeff. She started walking to her car, then turned back. Hey, for what it's worth, you look happier than you did at the Peterson wedding last year. He'd forgotten she'd been there, one of the last social events he and Darlene had attended together. I am happier. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you really need. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Tomorrow, then. As he watched her drive away, Jeff caught his reflection in a car window. He did look different, stronger, sharper, more focused. The man in the reflection wasn't a victim or a survivor. He was something else entirely. Darlene had wanted excitement, adventure, a new life. Well, so did he, and unlike her, he was going to do it right. He would rebuild everything better than before. And when Darlene finally realized what she'd thrown away, when she inevitably tried to come crawling back, he would enjoy watching her suffer. The first cracks in Darlene's perfect fantasy appeared 3 months after the divorce. Jeff noticed them through the carefully curated social media posts, the way a seasoned construction manager spots hairline fractures in concrete. Subtle but significant, her Instagram posts changed tone. Less living my best life, and more everything happens for a reason. Fewer couple shots with Tyler. More group photos where they barely touched. The forced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Jeff tracked these changes from the comfort of his renovated home office, sipping single malt scotch while scrolling through her digital descent. His own life had only improved. The Richardson Tower project was nearly complete. His fitness regime had transformed his physique, and his dinners with Renee had become a regular occurrence. The text from Emily, Darlene's younger sister, didn't surprise him. Can we talk? It's about Dar. They met at Merritt Coffee downtown, away from Darlene's usual haunts. Emily looked exactly like a younger version of her sister, but with a sharper edge to her features and a calculating gleam in her eyes that Darlene had never possessed. Thanks for meeting me, Emily said, stirring her latte. I wasn't sure you'd want to. Jeff leaned back in his chair, studying her. We've known each other 15 years, Em. I'm not going to pretend you don't exist just because your sister made poor choices. Poor choices. Emily laughed bitterly. That's putting it mildly. Have you met him? Tyler? Can't say I've had the pleasure. Trust me, there's no pleasure involved. She pulled out her phone, pulling up an Instagram post. Look at this. Last week at Whiskey Bar. The photo showed Tyler with his arm around Darlene. But Jeff's trained eye caught the details, the tight grip on her arm, the slight flinch in her expression, the defensive posture. He's controlling, Emily continued, her voice low. Possessive. She can't go anywhere without him knowing. Can't talk to anyone without him checking her phone. She thinks I don't notice, but you notice everything, Jeff finished. It wasn't a question. Emily had always been the more observant sister, the one who saw beneath surfaces. He's gotten physical, Emily said bluntly. Nothing visible. Nothing she can't cover up with makeup. But it's escalating. Jeff took a slow sip of his coffee, his expression unchanging. Why are you telling me this? Emily's eyes narrowed. Because you're the only one who can help her. No. The word came out flat, final. Jeff, please. Your sister made her choice, Emily. His voice remained calm, but steel ran through it. She threw away 20 years of marriage for her perfect fantasy. Now she gets to live with the reality. She made a mistake. Emily's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. She lowered it again. She knows that now. She's miserable. Good. The single word hung between them. Emily stared at him, shock flickering across her features. You don't mean that? I do. Jeff set his cup down precisely. Darlene wanted excitement? Adventure? Well, she's getting it. She wanted to feel alive. I'm sure every moment with Tyler is electrifying in its own way. You're really going to let her suffer? Let her. A cold smile touched his lips. I'm going to enjoy watching it. Emily sat back, something shifting in her expression. You've changed? No, I've evolved. Your sister killed the man who would have done anything to protect her. This is who's left. And who exactly is that? Jeff stood, dropping cash on the table for both drinks. Someone who understands that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their choices. He paused, looking down at her. You know where to find me if things get worse. They're already worse, Emily called after him. She cries every night. Keeps looking at your old photos. She misses you. Jeff turned back, his expression unreadable. Then she should have thought of that before she spread her legs for a personal trainer. Emily flinched at the crudeness. So unlike his usual carefully measured speech. What happened to you? Your sister happened to me. And now she gets to live with the results. He adjusted his jacket. Give her my regards. Tell her I hope she's enjoying her freedom. As he walked out of the coffee shop, his phone buzzed. A text from Renee. Still on for dinner tonight? He smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Let Darlene suffer in her self-made prison. He had better things to do. The next week proved Emily right. Darlene's carefully maintained social media facade began crumbling faster. The posts became erratic, sometimes multiple happy couples photos in a day, as if trying to prove something, followed by days of silence. Then came the incident at Whiskey Bar. Jeff was there with Renee when it happened, enjoying a quiet dinner at a corner table. The restaurant had become their regular spot, its upscale atmosphere and exceptional wine list perfectly suited to their tastes. So then the judge actually... Renee's story cut off as her eyes fixed on something over Jeff's shoulder. Don't turn around. But he already had. Through the bar's mirror-lined wall, he could see them, Darlene and Tyler, at the bar. She wore a new dress, probably chosen to hide the bruises Emily had mentioned. Tyler's muscled arm was wrapped around her waist, less an embrace than a restraint. We can leave, Renee offered quietly. Why? Jeff turned back to her, his expression calm. We were here first. They continued their dinner, but Jeff kept one eye on the reflection. He saw the moment it started, Tyler leaning close to Darlene, saying something that made her stiffen. Her hand trembling as she reached for her wine glass, the sound of breaking glass drew everyone's attention. Darlene stood amid the shards of her fallen glass, wine spreading across the floor like blood. I said, I'm sorry. Her voice carried across the now silent restaurant. I didn't mean to talk to him. He just asked for directions. Tyler's grip on her arm tightened visibly. Let's go. His voice was low, but carried an unmistakable threat. You're hurting me, Darlene whispered, but she didn't resist as he pulled her toward the door. The restaurant patrons watched in uncomfortable silence. A few people shifted as if to intervene, but no one moved. Shouldn't we? Renee started. No. Jeff took another bite of his steak. She made her choice. Jeff, he could really hurt her. Then she should leave him. He dabbed his mouth with his napkin. But she won't. Not yet. Her pride won't let her admit she made a mistake that big. Renee studied him over her wine glass. You really don't care anymore, do you? I care exactly as much as she did when she threw away 20 years of marriage. He signaled the waiter. Now, you were telling me about the judge? Later that night, alone in his home office, Jeff's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Please, I need help. Darlene. He stared at the message for a long moment, remembering the scene at the restaurant, Emily's warnings, the bruises hidden under expensive dresses. Then he blocked the number, let her suffer. Let her understand exactly what she'd lost. Let her live with her choices until they consumed her, after all. Isn't that what she'd wanted? Freedom to make her own mistakes. He poured himself another scotch and smiled. The evening after the whiskey bar incident, Jeff sat in his home office reviewing project files when his doorbell rang. He checked the security camera feed. Emily stood on his porch, her usual confidence replaced by obvious agitation that he considered ignoring it. But Emily had always been different from her sister, sharper, more calculating, with an edge that made her interesting. He opened the door. You saw what happened last night, she said without preamble. I saw a woman living with her choices. He stepped aside, letting her in. Want a drink? This isn't a social call. But she followed him to his office anyway. Tyler's gotten worse. She's afraid to leave the apartment without his permission. Jeff poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed her one. Sounds like a personal problem. He controls all her money now. Emily's fingers tightened around the glass. She had to ask his permission to buy groceries last week. She's got her own accounts. Had them. He convinced her to add him to everything. Transparency in their relationship. Emily's laugh was bitter. Now she can't access anything without him knowing. Jeff settled into his leather chair, expression unchanged. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Emily slammed her glass down. He's isolating her, controlling her, and you're just sitting here in your perfect house with your perfect new life. My perfect new life. Jeff's voice stayed level, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. The one I had to rebuild after your sister destroyed 20 years of marriage? That life. She made a mistake. No. He leaned forward. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. Systematically destroying your marriage while screwing your personal trainer? That's a choice. Emily paced the office, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She wants to leave him. She's scared. She should be. Jeff, please. Emily stopped, facing him. She needs help. Money to get away. Somewhere to stay. She's got family. You help her. I tried. Tyler checks her phone, monitors her email. He even follows her to work sometimes. Emily ran a hand through her hair. She needs someone stronger. Someone who knows how to handle situations like this. Jeff took a slow sip of scotch. Like who? Like you. You manage million-dollar projects, handle crisis situations daily. You could. Could what? His voice turned sharp. Sweep in and save her? Be her knight in shining armor. He stood, moving to the window. That man died the night she asked for a divorce. So you'll just let her suffer? Yes. He turned back to Emily, his expression hard. Just like she let me suffer while she planned her exit. Just like she let me suffer while she played house with her boy toy. The difference is I survived. I rebuilt. I'm stronger. Emily stepped closer, her voice dropping. And what if he really hurts her? Could you live with that? Better question, could she live with her choices? He met her gaze steadily. She wanted freedom, Emily. Freedom means facing consequences. You become cruel. No, I've become honest. Your sister taught me that kindness is weakness. That loyalty means nothing. That 20 years of marriage can be thrown away for a few months of excitement. He finished his scotch. Now she gets to learn her own lessons. Emily moved to leave, then paused at the door. She thinks about you, you know. Keeps your wedding photo hidden in her drawer. Good? Jeff's smile was cold. I want her to remember exactly what she threw away. Every time Tyler checks her phone. Every time he controls her money. Every time he leaves another bruise. I want her to remember she chose this. What happened to you? I evolved. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. After Emily left, Jeff returned to his project files. But his concentration was broken by a memory Darlene's face at Whiskey Bar, the fear in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. His phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number. I made a mistake. Please. I need you. Darlene again, using someone else's phone. His thumb hovered over the block button, then paused as 3 more messages came through. He's getting worse. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Jeff stared at the messages, remembering the day he taught Darlene self-defense moves years ago. She'd laughed, saying she'd never need them. That's what I have you for, she'd said, but she didn't have him anymore. She'd thrown that away for Tyler's sculpted abs and practice charm, but he blocked the new number later that night. He met Renee for dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant across town. She noticed his distraction immediately. Emily came to see you, didn't she? Jeff looked up from his wine glass. News travels fast. It's a small legal community. Renee set down her fork. She called my office today, asking if I knew any domestic violence attorneys. And I gave her some names. She studied his face. You really won't help? Would you? He met her gaze. If Mark left you for a younger woman, destroyed your marriage, then came crawling back when his perfect new life turned sour, would you help? Renee was quiet for a moment. I like to think I would. That's because you're a better person than I am. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I learned from Darlene. No more Mr. Nice Guy. The Jeff I knew in college would never. The Jeff you knew in college died. His voice was flat. Your ex killed the idealistic law student you dated. Darlene killed the devoted husband she married. We adapt. We evolve. Into what? He reached across the table, took her hand. Into survivors. Into people who don't let others use us anymore. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. Into people who understand that sometimes the best revenge is simply watching karma do its work. Renee pulled her hand back slowly. I'm not sure I like this version of you. You don't have to like me. His smile turned predatory. But you're still here, aren't you? She couldn't argue with that. The rest of dinner passed in comfortable conversation about safer topics: work, mutual friends, plans for the weekend. But as they left the restaurant, Renee paused. What if he really hurts her? Jeff helped her with her coat, his movements precise. Then she'll learn that actions have consequences, and that some mistakes can't be undone. That's cold, Jeff. No. He opened her car door. That's justice. Later that night, alone in his bed, Jeff's phone lit up one final time. A text from Emily. He hit her tonight. Bad. Hospital won't be necessary, but I thought you should know. Jeff read the message twice, then typed back 4 words. Tell her to enjoy it. He turned off his phone and poured another scotch. In the morning, he had a project meeting to prepare for. Life went on. Let Darlene learn what her freedom really cost. The call came at 2:47 a.m., nearly a week after the hospital incident. Jeff was still awake, reviewing contractor bids for his next project, when his phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. Something made him answer. Hello. At first, only ragged breathing came through the line. Then, in a voice thick with tears, Jeff? His hand tightened on the phone. How many times had he imagined this moment? How many nights had he pictured her calling, broken and desperate? Darlene. He kept his voice neutral, professional. It's late. A sob caught in her throat. I didn't know who else to call. You have family, friends, a boyfriend. He emphasized the last word, making it sound like the insult it was. Why call me? Because you're the only one. Another sob. The only one who ever made me feel safe. Jeff leaned back in his chair, savoring the moment like fine whiskey. And how's that working out for you now? Please. Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I know that now. Do you? He stood, walking to the window. The night sky stretched dark and endless. Tell me about your mistake, Darlene. Be specific. I threw everything away. The words tumbled out between sobs. 20 years of marriage. Our life together. Everything we built. And for what? For him? Tyler not living up to expectations. His tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. What happened to? He makes me feel alive. He hurts me. The admission came out as a whisper. Not just physically. He controls everything. My money, my phone, who I talk to. I can't even buy coffee without him checking the bank statement. Sounds exciting. Isn't that what you wanted? To feel something new? Jeff, please. Her voice grew desperate. I need help. I need to get away from him. I need. What you need, he cut her off coldly, is to live with your choices. I was wrong. The words exploded from her. Is that what you want to hear? I was stupid and selfish and wrong. I threw away the best thing in my life for a fantasy that turned into a nightmare. Jeff waited a moment, letting her words hang in the air. And I miss you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I miss us. Miss our life together. Miss feeling safe and loved and... Stop. The single word cut through her plea like a blade. You don't get to do this. Do what? Play the victim. Act like this was something that happened to you rather than something you chose. He moved back to his desk, picking up a framed photo from their wedding day. You didn't trip and fall into Tyler's bed. You didn't accidentally destroy our marriage. You made calculated decisions day after day that led you here. I know. The fight drained from her voice. But I'm scared, Jeff. Really scared. Tonight, she paused, drawing a shaky breath. He said if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure I regretted it. Said no one would find the body. Sounds serious. Jeff set the photo face down. Have you considered calling the police? He knows all the local cops from his gym. They're his clients. Her laugh held an edge of hysteria. Plus, I have no proof. No documentation. He's too smart for that. Smart enough to trap you completely. Jeff's voice took on an almost admiring tone. No money, no support system, no escape route. Almost like he's done this before. The silence on the other end told him his arrow had hit its mark. Oh. He smiled into the darkness. He has done this before, hasn't he? Did you bother to check his background before you threw away your marriage for him? Or was the excitement too alluring to care? Jeff! Her voice was barely audible now. I need you. 3 words. Once, they would have moved heaven and earth for her. Once, he would have rushed to her rescue. Consequences be damned, but that was before. Before she'd shown him exactly how much 20 years of devotion was worth. Darlene, he said, his voice deadly calm. You got exactly what you wanted. Freedom. Excitement. A new life. He paused, letting each word sink in. So enjoy it. Please don't. He ended the call. His phone immediately lit up again. Same number. He declined it. Again. Declined. Again, finally. He turned it off completely and poured himself a scotch. Standing at the window, he raised his glass in a mock toast to the night sky. To freedom, he murmured, and all its consequences. The next morning, his phone held 17 missed calls and a dozen texts, each more desperate than the last. He deleted them all without reading and headed to work at the construction site. His project manager Mike approached with concern etched on his face. Boss, there's a woman asking for you at the security gate. Says her name is Darlene. Jeff didn't look up from the blueprints he was reviewing. I'm in meetings all day. She was pretty rough, sir. Said it's an emergency. It's not. He made a notation on the plans. Have security escort her off the property. She's not authorized to be here. Mike hesitated. She's crying, boss. Says she has nowhere else to go. Jeff finally looked up, his eyes cold. Then I suggest she find somewhere, preferably far from here. He turned back to the blueprints. And Mike, if she comes back, call the police. Yes, sir. Mike retreated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but unwilling to argue. Jeff returned to his work, but his mind briefly flashed to the fear in Darlene's voice last night. The desperation. The growing realization that she'd trapped herself in a cage of her own, making good let her feel trapped. Let her understand what it meant to have everything you believed and ripped away. Let her experience true fear, true helplessness. His phone buzzed with a text from Renee. Lunch today? That new Thai place downtown. He smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Life moved forward. He had moved forward. Darlene wanted to go backward? Too bad, some mistakes couldn't be undone. Some bridges, once burned, stayed ash forever. Let her live with that knowledge. Let it consume her, just as her betrayal had once consumed him. After all, isn't this what she'd wanted? Freedom to make her own choices? Now she got to live. The Richardson Tower project's completion ceremony should have been Jeff's moment of triumph. The gleaming skyscraper stood as a testament to his expertise, finished ahead of schedule and under budget. But as he stood at the podium delivering his speech, he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure hovering at the edge of the crowd. Darlene looked nothing like the polished yoga instructor who'd asked for a divorce 6 months ago. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a plain dress that hung loose on her frame. Dark glasses couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes. And so, Jeff continued smoothly, not missing a beat. I'd like to thank our outstanding team for their dedication to excellence. He watched through his peripheral vision as security approached her. No scene, no dramatics, they simply escorted her away as he finished his speech to enthusiastic applause. Afterward, at the champagne reception, Renee found him by the window. She looked terrible, she said quietly, following his gaze to the spot where Darlene had stood. Did she? Jeff sipped his champagne. I hadn't noticed. Jeff. Renee touched his arm. Emily called me again. Tyler's gotten worse. I don't want to hear it. His voice remained pleasant, but his eyes hardened. Today is about celebrating success, not discussing my ex-wife's poor life choices. He locked her in their apartment for 2 days last week. Jeff turned to face her fully. And? Renee stepped back, shock flickering across her features. She's being abused, terrorized. How can you be so cold? Cold. He set his glass down carefully. Let me tell you about cold, Renee. Cold is discovering your wife of 20 years has been sleeping with someone else. Cold is watching her throw away everything you built together for a fantasy. Cold is sitting there while she tells you another man makes her feel alive. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I learned cold from the best. This is different. No, it's not. He straightened his tie. She chose this life. Chose him. Now she gets to live with those choices. Until he kills her? If it comes to that, Jeff said softly, then she'll have learned the ultimate lesson about consequences, won't she? Renee stared at him for a long moment. I don't know you anymore. No, he agreed. You don't, and neither does she. Later that evening, as Jeff worked late in his office, his phone lit up with Emily's number. What? He put her in the hospital. Emily's voice shook with anger. Broken ribs. Concussion. They're calling it a fall down the stairs. Jeff's fingers tightened on his pen, but his voice remained steady. Why are you telling me this? Because the police won't help. His gym buddies made sure the report disappeared. She's trapped, Jeff. He's going to kill her. Then she should leave. She can't. He controls everything. Her money, her phone, her car. He even changed the locks on their apartment. She's a prisoner. Jeff set his pen down carefully. Sounds like she's living quite the exciting life. Isn't that what she wanted? Damn it, Jeff. Emily's voice cracked. I know she hurt you. I know she destroyed everything. But this isn't about revenge anymore. This is about survival. No, he corrected her softly. This is about choices. She chose to destroy our marriage. Chose to chase excitement. Chose him. He paused. Now she gets to live with those choices. She's going to die, Jeff. If not this time, then the next, or the one after that. Then she dies. His voice was ice. But she dies knowing exactly why. Knowing she walked away from safety for danger. From love for excitement. From me for him. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. You've become a monster, Emily finally whispered. No. Jeff smiled into the darkness of his office. I've become what she made me. What she wanted. Someone who puts himself first. Someone who doesn't care about others' pain. He leaned back in his chair. Tell her I said to enjoy her freedom. Every bruise, every broken bone, every moment of terror, it's all part of the exciting life she chose. He ended the call and turned back to his work. But the image of Darlene at the ceremony lingered, the lost look in her eyes, The way she'd reached toward him before security led her away. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. He's coming home. He saw me at your ceremony. He's angry. Please. Jeff stared at the message for a long moment. Then he blocked the number and poured himself a scotch. Let her fear. Let her suffer. Let her understand exactly what she'd thrown away. After all, wasn't this what she'd wanted? Freedom from their boring, safe life? Adventure to replace stability? Excitement instead of love? Well, now she had it all. The freedom to be trapped. The adventure of never knowing when the next blow would fall. The excitement of constant terror. Jeff raised his glass in a silent toast to the night sky. Enjoy it, Dar, he whispered. Enjoy every moment of the life you chose. His phone lit up one final time. Emily again. I hope you can live with yourself. He typed back 3 words before turning off his phone. Watch me thrive. 3 weeks after the Richardson Tower ceremony, Jeff woke to pounding on his front door. The security system showed Darlene on his porch, mascara streaked down her face. Wearing a coat despite the warm Austin night, he almost ignored it. Almost went back to bed. But something in her desperate movements caught his attention. She kept looking over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to appear from the shadows. When he opened the door, the sharp scent of copper hit him first. Blood. A thin trail ran from her split lip, and her left eye was swelling shut. You can't be here. His voice remained cold, controlled. Please. She swayed slightly, steadying herself against the doorframe. He's going to kill me. For real this time. Jeff studied her clinically. The bruises weren't hidden by makeup now. They mapped a history of violence across her skin, some yellow with age, others purple fresh. Her designer coat couldn't hide how thin she'd become. That sounds like a police matter. They won't help. The words burst from her. I tried. His friends at the department buried my complaints. He knows I tried to report him, and now. She shuddered. He said he'd make it look like an accident. Said no one would ever find out. Why are you here, Darlene? She looked up at him, her good eye bright with tears. Because you're the only one strong enough to help me. The only one he might actually fear. Jeff leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Interesting. I remember being boring once. Safe. Predictable. What changed? Everything. Her voice cracked. I changed. You changed. The whole world changed the night She couldn't finish. The night you destroyed our marriage. He supplied helpfully. The night you threw away 20 years for a younger model. I was wrong. The words echoed in the quiet neighborhood. I was stupid and selfish and wrong. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, Jeff said softly, is for you to understand exactly what you lost. To feel it in your bones. To wake up every morning knowing you had something precious and threw it away for garbage. I understand now. She reached for him, but he stepped back. God, Jeff, I understand so clearly it's killing me. No. His smile was razor sharp. Tyler's killing you. I'm just watching. A car engine rumbled in the distance. Darlene's head snapped up, terror flooding her features. He's looking for me. Please. I have nowhere else to go. Jeff considered her for a long moment. The woman who had shared his bed for 20 years. Who had known his every dream and fear. Who had taken that intimate knowledge and used it to destroy him completely. Yes, you do. He stepped back. You have the exciting new life you chose. The freedom you wanted so badly. His hand closed on the door. Enjoy it. Jeff, wait. The door clicked shut with quiet finality. Through the security camera, he watched her sink to her knees on his porch, shoulders shaking with sobs. His phone buzzed. Emily, she's at your house, isn't she? He corrected. She just left. You turned her away. It wasn't a question. Even seeing what he's done to her. Especially seeing that. Jeff moved to his home office, poured a scotch. Every bruise is a reminder of her choice. Every moment of fear is the freedom she wanted so badly. You're enjoying this. Yes, he didn't bother denying it. I'm enjoying watching karma deliver exactly what she deserves. She could die tonight. Then she dies knowing exactly why. He swirled the scotch in his glass, knowing she walked away from safety into danger, from love into violence, from me into hell. The silence stretched between them. There's something else, Emily finally said. Something I haven't told you. I'm fascinated. Tyler's done this before. 3 other women. One died in a car accident that was never solved. Another disappeared completely. The third, she paused. The third managed to escape, change her name, moved across the country. And you're telling me this because Darlene found out. That's why she ran tonight. She discovered his past, confronted him about it. Her voice caught. He told her she'd never live to tell anyone else. Jeff absorbed this information, letting it settle like aged whiskey on his tongue. So she finally discovered who she left me for. Poetic. Damn it, Jeff. This isn't about poetry or revenge anymore. This is about choices. He cut her off. And consequences. She chose him. Now she gets to discover exactly who he is. He smiled into the darkness. Tell her to enjoy the revelation. He ended the call and turned to his window. In the street below, a dark car cruised past slowly. Tyler, looking for his prey, let him search. Let Darlene run. Let them play out their tragic drama to its inevitable conclusion that he had a dinner date with Emily to prepare for anyway. After all, what better revenge than letting his ex-wife watch him find happiness with her own sister? Emily arrived at Jeff's house exactly on time, wearing a black dress that made her look nothing like her sister. She'd always been the sharper one, the more calculating one. Where Darlene had been all soft curves and practiced charm, Emily was angles and raw honesty. Nice dress, Jeff said, opening the door. Nice house. She stepped inside, her heels clicking on the hardwood. You've changed it. Completely renovated. He led her to the kitchen, where dinner was already prepared. Wine? Please. She watched him pour, her eyes tracking his movements. You know this will destroy her. That's the point. He handed her a glass. When did you first want me, Em? The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. Emily took a slow sip of wine before answering. Since college. When you were dating Darlene, she met his gaze steadily. I was the smarter choice. We both knew it. And now, her smile turned predatory. Now you're finally the man I always saw in you. Someone who takes what he wants without apology. Jeff moved closer, close enough to smell her perfume. Nothing like the floral scents Darlene preferred. And what do you want, Emily? The same thing you do? She set down her wine glass. To make her suffer. To let her see exactly what she threw away. And who got to claim it? He traced a finger along her jawline, feeling her pulse quicken. Using you to hurt her. That's cruel. Yes. Emily leaned into his touch. But I'm not being used, am I? I've wanted this for 20 years. Watched you waste yourself on her. Watched you play the devoted husband while she took you for granted. And now we take everything from her. Her safety, her dignity. Emily's smile was razor sharp. Even her little sister. Jeff pulled her closer, his movements deliberate. You know she'll find out. I'm counting on it. Emily's hand slid up his chest. In fact, I made sure of it. He raised an eyebrow. How? I told her I was having dinner with you tonight. Suggested she might want to drop by, try one last time to win you back. Her laugh was cold. She'll come. She always was predictable. And when she finds us together, then she'll understand. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. She'll understand that she didn't just lose you. She lost everything. Her marriage, her safety, and now her own sister. Jeff studied her face, seeing the years of rivalry, of standing in Darlene's shadow, of watching her sister take everything for granted. You've been planning this for 20 years. Emily didn't bother denying it. Waiting, watching, knowing someday she'd screw up badly enough to give me my chance. And Tyler, a happy accident. Her smile turned cruel. I didn't plan for him to be quite so effective. But he's certainly made things interesting, hasn't he? The doorbell rang, right on cue. Perfect timing. Emily's eyes gleamed. Shall we give her a show? Jeff pulled her closer, his movements deliberate. You really want to destroy her completely? Yes. No hesitation. Don't you? The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Through the security feed, they could see Darlene on the porch, her bruises stark under the porch light. Let's give her what she deserves. Jeff's smile matched Emily's for cruelty. A front row seat to everything she lost. He led Emily toward the door, positioning them perfectly for maximum impact. When he opened it, Darlene's gasp was audible. She stood there, clutching her coat around her like armor, staring at them with wide eyes. The bruises from earlier had darkened, mapping her face in purple and blue. Jeff! Her voice cracked. Emily? Hello, sis. Emily pressed closer to Jeff, her smile victorious. Surprised? What are you doing here? Having dinner. Jeff's arm slid around Emily's waist. Would you like to watch? Darlene stumbled back a step, her face draining of color. Emily, you can't. He's mine. You're what? Emily's voice turned sharp. Your husband? No, you threw that away. Your protector? You gave up that right. Your future. She laughed. That belongs to me now. Jeff. Darlene's eyes pleaded with him. Please tell me this isn't. You can't be. Can't be what? He pulled Emily closer. Moving on? Finding someone who actually appreciates me? Someone who won't throw away 20 years for a gym rat with anger issues? But she's my sister. Yes. Emily's smile was triumphant. I am. The sister who watched you take him for granted. Who watched you destroy the best thing in your life. Who waited for you to finally, inevitably, screw everything up. Tears streamed down Darlene's face. This is wrong. This is sick. No. Jeff's voice was ice. This is karma. This is consequences. This is exactly what you deserve. A car engine rumbled in the distance. Darlene's head snapped up, terror replacing shock. He's coming. She reached for Jeff desperately. Please. Whatever sick game you're playing with Emily, please just help me. He's going to kill me. Then you should run. Emily's voice was casual. Tyler gets so angry when he can't find you, doesn't he? All that rage, all that strength. Emily, please. Darlene grabbed her sister's arm. I'm your sister. No. Emily shook her off. You're just the woman who had everything I wanted, and threw it all away. The car engine grew louder. Headlights swept the street. Time to go, Dar. Jeff's smile was cold. Emily and I have dinner plans. And you? Well, you have that exciting life you wanted so badly. Don't do this. Darlene's voice broke completely. Please. I love you. I made a mistake. Goodbye, Darlene. He started closing the door. Enjoy your freedom. The last thing they saw was her face, shattered by betrayal. As Tyler's car turned onto the street, Emily laughed softly as the door clicked shut. That was perfect. Yes. Jeff pulled her closer, their reflection sharp in the hallway mirror. It was. Let Darlene run. Let her feel the full weight of her choices. Let her understand that she hadn't just lost her husband. She'd lost everything, including her own sister. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't just watching someone suffer. It was taking everything they had ever loved, piece by precious piece, until nothing remained but regret. The morning after their dinner, Jeff woke to Emily curled against him, her dark hair spread across his pillow. She stirred as he got up, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Any regrets? She asked, watching him dress for work. About destroying your sister completely? He adjusted his tie in the mirror. None. Good. She stretched languidly. Because she's going to come back. Probably today. She always was predictably desperate. Jeff turned to face her. And you're sure about this? About us? I've waited 20 years to take everything from her. Emily's eyes gleamed. The fact that I actually want you makes it even better. His phone buzzed, Shane Parker calling. Jeff. His friend's voice was tense. We need to talk. About Darlene. Nothing to talk about. She's in the hospital. Critical condition. Tyler really did a number on her this time. Jeff checked his watch. I have a meeting in 30 minutes. Damn it, Jeff. Shane's control cracked. He nearly killed her. The doctors aren't sure if she'll. Then she shouldn't have run to him. Jeff's voice remained calm. Actions have consequences, Shane. You taught me that. This isn't about consequences anymore. This is about exactly what she deserves. Jeff ended the call, turning back to Emily. Your sister's in the hospital. Emily sat up, the sheet falling away. Critical condition? Apparently. Good? Her smile was cold. Maybe now she'll understand what it feels like to lose everything. The doorbell rang, an urgent, repeated pressing that spoke of desperation through the security feed. They saw Darlene. She looked even worse than yesterday, if that was possible. Fresh bruises layered over old ones, and she held herself like someone with broken ribs. Right on schedule, Emily murmured. Shall we give her the final show? Jeff smiled. Let's make it memorable. He opened the door to find Darlene, swaying on the doorstep, barely able to stand. You have to help me, she gasped. Please. I have nowhere else to go. Wrong. Jeff's voice was ice. You have exactly where you chose to go. Back to Tyler. He'll kill me. The words came out as a sob. You know he will. The hospital? Last night. I barely got away. Not my problem. He started to close the door, but she grabbed it. Please. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything. But you can't let him kill me. Actually, a voice called from inside. He can? Emily appeared behind Jeff, wearing his dress shirt and nothing else. She wrapped her arms around him possessively. Her smile victorious, Darlene staggered back, as if physically struck. No, please, this can't. Can't what? Emily's voice dripped false concern. Can't stand seeing him with someone else? Can't handle knowing he's moved on? Or can't accept that your own sister is now sleeping in your bed? Emily, tears streamed down Darlene's face. Why? Because you had everything I ever wanted. Emily's mask dropped, revealing years of bitter resentment. The perfect husband, the perfect life, and you threw it away like garbage. So you seduced him? To punish me? No. Emily laughed. I wanted him. Always have, since college. You were just too self-absorbed to notice. She pressed closer to Jeff. And now I have him. Every last bit. Jeff. Darlene turned her pleading eyes to him. This isn't you. You're not this cruel. Wrong again. He smiled coldly. This is exactly who I am now. Who you made me. He pulled Emily closer. You taught me that love is weakness. That loyalty means nothing. That 20 years can be thrown away for a few moments of excitement. I was wrong. The words exploded from her. I know that now. I'll do anything to make it right. But you can't. Emily's voice was gentle, which made it worse. You can't undo what you did. Can't unfuck Tyler. Can't unbreak Jeff's heart. Her smile turned cruel. All you could do is watch while I take everything you threw away. A car engine roared in the distance. Darlene's face went white. Please, she whispered. He's coming. He's gonna kill me this time. For real. Then I guess you'd better run. Jeff's voice was conversational. Though with those broken ribs, you probably won't get far. You're really going to let him kill me? Darlene's voice cracked completely. While you sleep with my sister? No. Emily answered for him. We're going to let you live. Live to watch us build the life you could have had. Live to see me wear your ring. Sleep in your bed. Love your husband better than you ever did. The car was closer now. Tyler's black BMW turned onto their street. Time's up, Dar. Jeff started closing the door. Enjoy your freedom. Every broken bone. Every moment of terror. Every single consequence of your choices. Jeff, please. She tried to push through the door. I love you. No. He met her eyes one final time. You loved yourself more. And now you get to live or die with that choice. The door closed with a final click. Through the security feed, they watched Tyler's car screech to a stop. Watched Darlene try to run, stumbling on injured legs. Watched him grab her, his rage visible even through the camera, her scream cut off as he dragged her to the car. Think he'll really kill her? Emily asked, pressing against Jeff's back. Does it matter? She laughed softly. No, I suppose it doesn't. She turned him to face her. Now, where were we? Jeff pulled her close, catching their reflection in the hallway mirror. They looked right together. Stronger. Sharper. Two people who understood that love was a weapon and mercy was weakness. Let Darlene learn that lesson through pain. Let her understand the true cost of betrayal. Let her live long enough to watch her sister claim everything she'd thrown away. That was the perfect revenge, not just destroying her, but replacing her completely after all. Isn't that what she'd wanted? Freedom from their life together. Now she had it. In the most complete, most devastating way possible, and Jeff. He had exactly what he deserved. Someone who wouldn't take him for granted. Someone who understood the value of loyalty. Someone who would help him enjoy watching Darlene's world burn to ashes, the perfect ending to a perfect revenge.
Story 4.
At around 5:30 p.m. on Sunday, Beverly entered through the front door, tossed her purse and keys onto the nightstand, and made her way down the hallway to the master bedroom. I'm unsure if she noticed me sitting in the office, but it didn't really matter. Over the past few years, I've practically become invisible to her. Approaching her, I retrieved her set of keys, took my spare keys from her, and then rummaged through her purse. I removed her cell phone and wallet, extracting all the cash and credit cards from my wallet and stashing the loot in my pocket, just to be safe. I also grabbed her driver's license before returning to my spot in the office. 15 minutes later, Bev emerged from the hall, looking well-dressed, and spotted me. As she slung her purse over her shoulder and grabbed her keys, she remarked, "I'm meeting some girls from work. Don't wait up." "No, you're not going out with girls from work," I protested. "Jack, you should know by now. You don't control me. I'll do as I please," she retorted. "I didn't say you couldn't hang out with girls from work. I said you're not going to. You're going to see your boyfriend, so don't lie to me," I stated. Beverly stood silently for a moment before boldly entering the office and confronting me. "All right, Jack, you know I'd prefer to handle this differently, but let's end it here. You have two options. Either salvage what's left of this marriage by granting me some freedom, or face divorce and be cut out of my life. What's it going to be?" she challenged. "I'll take door number 3, I replied with a smirk. "Don't be childish. There's no door number 3. Either accept that I have a lover now, a real man, or brace yourself for the consequences," Beverly warned. I stood up, walked over to Bev, and pushed her against the wall, removing the engagement ring and wedding rings from her left hand. With my face close to hers and a fierce glare in my eyes, I whispered angrily, "Here's your door number 3. It's my front door. When you leave through it, it'll be the last time you walk out with anything and never return. You won't get another penny of my money. You'll lose your husband, your daughter, your house, your money, your car, and your job eventually." "You're living in a fantasy, Jack," she muttered nervously. "My lawyer will destroy you tomorrow. I'll send the divorce papers to your workplace. If you damage me, you'll suffer more than I will." I pulled her away from the wall and dragged her toward the front door, her heels causing her to stumble as she screamed incoherently. Bev struggled to maintain her balance, her composure shattered. Throughout our marriage, I had never laid a hand on her, and she didn't know how to react. As she began to regain her senses in the front yard, I shut the door and locked it, the lock already replaced earlier in the day. Earlier, as Bev left, I made the first of 2 calls. I dialed my 19-year-old daughter's number at college. "Hey, it's Dad. Our situation with your mom has hit a crucial point. Looks like she'll be moving in with her boyfriend, and I need to talk to you about it. Just so you know, I've got our last conversation and tons of past arguments recorded. You can listen to them, so you know the truth when she tries to twist things and blame me, which she probably will. Truth is, your mom's been cheating. Not sure how many times, but she's chosen to leave us for this guy. I'll explain more soon, but her boyfriend seems pretty sketchy, so be cautious in your relationship with her." I approached Patty, asking her to return home for the weekend. My intention was to have a conversation and offer her the chance to listen to some tapes if she desired. Thankfully, Patty agreed to come home on Friday. After sorting that out, I reached out to Martha, our neighbor down the block. "Martha, it's Jack," I said over the phone. "If the offer's still good, I'd like to take you up on it. Could you come over in about an hour?" I kept my explanation brief. I felt it was necessary to confide in Martha. Bev and I had met young, married, and soon had Patty. Things seemed good at the start, but Bev's demeanor changed rapidly. She became grumpy, manipulative, and controlling. I tried my best to keep the peace and make her happy, but it only seemed to make things worse. Looking back, I realized I contributed to my own suffering by constantly trying to please her. Now in our 40s, our lives were a mess. It wasn't long before I discovered Bev's affair with a man named Sylvester, known as Sly, who had a violent past. The realization that our marriage was beyond repair brought me a sense of relief, and I began planning my next steps. I've heard stories where the husband takes half the money, I continued, but not me. I took every penny I could find, including all the cash in the house. I changed the locks and planned to provoke Bev as much as possible. I knew her well enough to anticipate her reactions. She's dangerous in many ways, but this time she'd be a danger to herself, too. In fact, my planning had started long before I discovered Bev's affair. For years I had been discreetly recording our arguments. Bev thought the device I always carried with me was a simple MP3 player, but in reality, I was building a library of her outbursts to document her behavior. I knew no one would believe my stories unless I had proof, as she only mistreated me behind closed doors. I wanted to be able to share my experiences with everyone, including Patty, to reveal Bev's true nature. On the Monday following our Sunday argument, I hosted a gathering in the company break room. A prominent banner declared "Happy Divorce" overhead. With cake and ice cream at the ready, I eagerly anticipated the arrival of the process server. Fortunately, it was a pleasantly plump girl handling the task. Numerous photos were snapped as my co-workers and I celebrated the receipt of our divorce papers. I even took a picture while accepting the papers, planting a kiss on the server girl's cheek as she sported a festive hat. In another snapshot, I playfully fed her cake, both of us grinning. After the festivities, I emailed the photos to Bev, along with others from the party. Among them were shots of myself and Martha, my roommate, lounging in bed with sheets drawn up, smiling broadly. I hoped Bev would notice her wedding rings adorning Martha's left hand resting on my chest. An hour later, I received an angry call. "You scoundrel! My lawyer will tear you apart after seeing these photos. What a foolish move." "Hardly, Bev. There's nothing inappropriate in these images. No nudity, just pranks between neighbors. Just light-hearted pictures," I countered. "We'll address this later, Jack. I'll swing by the house this evening to retrieve some belongings. It might be best if you're not there." "If I'm absent, you won't gain entry. All locks have been changed. If you need anything, be there well before 6:45. Martha and I have plans at 7 o'clock, and I'd rather not be late." Last night marked the most satisfying closeness I've experienced, and tonight promises to be even better. With that, I ended the call and ignored her subsequent 5 attempts. While I haven't answered all her calls since, I have listened to every message. Unlike other men in similar situations, there was a good chance Bev might slip up or accidentally reveal a secret in her angry messages. And indeed, she did divulge herself several times in the following weeks. At 4:30 that day, I drove to Bev's workplace parking lot, aiming to arrive before the evening rush. Confirming the absence of security cameras, what I had to do would be swift. Pulling up beside Bev's car, I circled around her, using wire cutters to sever the valve stems on all her tires. Oh, she'd certainly be enraged. And there'd be no fixing them in time to make it home by 6:45. However, it was around 6:35 when she appeared. Evidently, she'd been out with someone, desperate to return home. Having seen receipts for clothing she hadn't brought home, I knew she must have had plenty stashed at her lover's. She must have wanted something else. Slipping out the back door, I hurried to Martha's house, leaving Bev pounding on the front door and shouting. Upon my return that evening, I found my front window shattered, blood splattered around it. After reviewing the porch security footage, I called the police. The video depicted Bev smashing the window with a tire iron, her threats to harm me echoing clear. Unfortunately for her, the lock I'd installed required a key from both sides. As she recoiled, she sliced her forearm deeply, inciting more screams and threats. I promptly reported the incident, and an officer guided me through filing a restraining order. The next morning, Bev was served with papers forbidding her from coming within 500 feet of me or our home. To say she was livid would be an understatement. "What in the world are you doing, idiot?" kicked off her next call, filled with fury and renewed threats. I meticulously recorded the entire conversation. A few hours later, after she had calmed down a bit, she called again. This time, she mentioned sending her friend Lindsay to retrieve some of her belongings that evening. What could she be so desperate to retrieve from the house, I wondered. Suspicions brewing, I agreed to meet Lindsay at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. To prepare, I left work a bit early to set up a video camera in my bedroom, with a monitor discreetly installed in my office. Lindsay arrived promptly, and I greeted her warmly. While she packed some clothes into 2 black plastic trash bags, I sat on the bed, observing. Lindsay looked at me nervously, and then requested water from the kitchen. I smiled and left. Upon glancing at the monitor, I noticed Lindsay pulling a shoebox from her closet and placing it into a bag nearby. She then resumed selecting clothes. Upon her return with water, I observed her continuing to pack. She declared that it should suffice, and requested me to take one bag while she took the other, noting that the one she held seemed heavier. I offered to assist Lindsay, but she declined, insisting she was fine and asking me to grab another bag. As she began to fidget and move towards the door with her package, I questioned if there was anything in the package I should be aware of. I grasped her wrist and opened the package, to which she responded anxiously, explaining that it contained clothes and items that Bev needed. Realizing her lie, I confronted Lindsay about the odor emanating from the box, and upon opening it, I found stacks of worn $50 and $100 bills. Accusing her of attempting to steal from me, I rose to my feet and escorted her towards the exit and down the hallway. Lindsay claimed that the money belonged to Bev and that she was merely sent to collect it, denying any intention of theft. However, I pointed out that she came to my house supposedly for clothes, but was leaving with a box of money, which, in my view, constituted theft. Threatening to call the police, I insisted that she prepare to be arrested for robbery. In response, Lindsay pleaded with me not to involve the authorities, citing her children and husband. I seated her on the couch and expressed my disappointment, stating that she would never be welcome in my house again. Despite her protests and tears, I made it clear that if she wished to make amends for her wrongdoing, she had only one chance. You'll leave this house and inform Bev that I caught you stealing. Then you'll report everything you hear or see to me, especially regarding our divorce or her relationship with Sly. You won't divulge anything about our arrangement. Bev made a terrible mistake getting involved with this loser, and you'll ultimately help her leave him. I informed Lindsay that if she cooperated with me, I had the entire incident on video, and I could call the police and file a report against her at any time. Reluctantly, Lindsay agreed to act as my informant. As soon as she departed, I took the box of money and walked to Martha's house at the end of the block. She agreed to conceal it for me until I could safely stash it somewhere beyond Bev's reach. I knew the likely source of the money. Bev's Aunt Mabel, known for her stinginess, passed away a few months ago, leaving Bev as her sole heir. While I knew Aunt Mabel had left Bev a small rural cottage, there was never any mention of money. It seemed that when Bev inspected the cabin after the will reading, she stumbled upon her aunt's hidden cash. When my wife Bev called, enraged and screaming, I recorded the conversation cautiously. "This money is mine, Jack. I want my damn money," she yelled. "Bev, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I caught Lindsay trying to pilfer money from my nightstand. This is mine." "You know exactly what I'm referring to. The money in the shoebox is mine. It's from Aunt Mabel," I retorted. "Maybe Lindsay found some money in a shoebox, but if so, she likely took it and kept it for herself. I don't have it. And if you had money here unknown to me, you didn't report it on your taxes last year. I've reviewed our tax returns. You're welcome to involve the police, and then we'll inform the IRS about this money, letting them handle your tax evasion," she snapped before hanging up. I felt a need for retaliation. I'd pushed Bev's buttons too hard for her to simply disappear. Restricted by a restraining order from leaving her house, I anticipated she might retaliate against me through my car, considering I'd previously vandalized hers. Hence, I had a dashboard-mounted camera installed, but it wasn't sufficient. If she chose that route, I wanted clear footage. Thus, when I parked in front of the garage on Wednesday morning, I set up an exterior camera. Discreetly positioned, it streamed video to my desk, accessible an hour before lunch. I watched on my laptop as Bev parked behind my car, got out, and began smashing it with a hammer, shattering windows and denting panels. The sight of her breaking the windshield and yelling sent a shiver down my spine. I dialed emergency, and a police car awaited her as she left the driveway. Presenting the video evidence of my damaged Toyota, the authorities arrested Bev, recognizing her actions as a criminal offense. The resisting arrest charge was an added bonus. As she was led away, her pleading eyes met my silent stare. Bev's divorce lawyer phoned me Wednesday, notifying me of a court hearing regarding access to the money withdrawn from our joint accounts. Set for Thursday at 10 a.m., I arrived at 9:50, wondering if Bev had posted bail. She entered with her lawyer, wearing a smug expression. Addressing the judge, her lawyer asserted, "Your Honor, My client was denied access to the shared bank accounts. After she filed for divorce, her husband illicitly emptied them. We're requesting a 50-50 split. Mr. Reynolds, would you like to address the court? Yes, Your Honor. My wife, who has been unfaithful, has been withdrawing her own funds from our joint accounts for months. The money I withdrew was fair compensation since I cover rent and bills. She abandoned our marriage to be with her affair partner. Bev rose, objecting. That's untrue. He drained our savings and checking accounts, leaving me with nothing. Her lawyer intervened, guiding her back to her seat for a brief conference while I presented documents to the judge. Your Honor, these bank statements cover last year. You'll see highlighted amounts, including Bev's salary, up until a few months ago, along with periodic bonuses. Then, about 6 months ago, her deposits ceased, including bonuses. I have a recorded conversation with her HR confirming her direct deposit switch to her personal account. The total amount diverted from our joint account is significant. It's evident my unfaithful wife possesses substantial wealth obtained from our marriage. The judge scrutinized the bank statements and then addressed Beverly. Do you have any response, Miss Reynolds? Her lawyer rose cautiously, stating, Your Honor, even if my client has personal funds, Mr. Reynolds is still obligated to provide her with her fair share. Well, Counselor, I don't appreciate deceit. Miss Reynolds claimed she was destitute, yet she entered with you. It's clear she was financially supported from marital assets, deceiving her husband and the court. Since Mr. Reynolds covers expenses from his own funds, there's no reason to alter the financial arrangements. Property division will be addressed in the final divorce decree. Case closed. As I left, Bev confronted me in the hallway. I began noting her threats. Bev, you're violating the restraining order. I'll contact the police if you don't leave. By the way, how was jail? Ready for more time there? You're facing criminal charges. Though she seemed ready to retaliate, I continued toward the exit. She stood, fists clenched, face flushed. Later that evening, I went to a different bar where I had previously encountered an intriguing man named Zeke. Fortunately, he was there. I greeted him and asked if he remembered me, to which he replied that my name wasn't important. Zeke then mentioned that he still had the beat-up car. Expressing his disdain for the car, he explained that his wife had taken the good one when she left with her new lover. He complained about the broken air conditioning and his inability to afford a replacement. I inquired about his car insurance and suggested that if he followed my advice, I might be able to help him get something better. Zeke responded by saying he was listening. Let's imagine you're driving down 38th Street, and suddenly a gray cat dashes out in front of you. Naturally, you hit the brakes, and there's a chance the lady behind you might rear-end your lousy car at speeds over 15 miles per hour. Your car could end up totaled, but as long as you're firmly against the headrest with your seatbelt on, you should be okay. Insurance will take care of the damages. Plus, you could at least afford a car with air conditioning. But what if the lady who hits me gets injured? I can't do that to her. Well, I can assure you she'll be an unfaithful wife, and there won't be anyone else in her car if you follow my instructions. What do you think about that? Oh man, that would be great. I can't stand cheaters. And I definitely need to get rid of this car. Park at the corner of 38th and Lessing by 5 p.m. tomorrow. Keep an eye out for a blue Miata leaving the parking lot and heading your way. Pull out in front of it. She doesn't like passing other cars, so drive a block or so until she's tailing you. Then, you'll spot a cat darting across the road. Get ready and hit the brakes hard. Just stay in the car. Afterward, dial emergency and mention a possible neck injury. And by the way, we've never met. I won't be back in this bar, and we don't know each other. Dude, I'm colder than the AC in your new car. On Friday, I left work early to meet my daughter at home. As planned, she finished her classes and returned on Sunday evening. We discussed the divorce situation, and I played her a recording of my conversation with her mother about door number 3. Patty was stunned by her mother's ruthless tone and demands. Then, I shared recordings from the past 2 years, revealing a side of Bev she'd never known. What do you know about the guy Mom's with? Dad? I know he's trouble, and I want you to steer clear of him. If you must meet your mom, make sure it's in a public place. I don't know what he's capable of to get to me. In any case, always have something to protect yourself if there's even a hint he might be around. Patty, I knew your mom and I had our issues, but I never realized the extent of it. What went wrong between us? This was a question I had anticipated, so I proceeded to offer a condensed version of my viewpoint to Patty. I explained to her that her mother and I had fundamentally different perspectives on marriage. After reflecting on the matter, I conveyed to Patty that I had identified 4 main ways power could be distributed in a relationship. There are instances when neither party takes the lead, resulting in a situation where everything drifts aimlessly like a ship without a rudder. Alternatively, both partners may assume responsibility, leading to constant battles over dominance, or a division of control over different aspects of the relationship. Some couples might even share responsibility equally, which was my expectation going into our relationship. However, things didn't pan out as expected. Another scenario arises when the man assumes full control. While such an arrangement may function under specific circumstances, modern perceptions often view such paternalistic relationships as oppressive to women. Yet, if a man wholeheartedly devotes himself to his wife, it can resemble a fairy tale romance, offering a fulfilling life to a wife with the right temperament, free from the burden of difficult decisions. Alternatively, it could mirror your maternal grandparents' dynamic, where your grandmother was passive and your grandfather was dominant and at times harsh. Your mother likely grew up witnessing this and expected a similar power dynamic in our relationship. Consequently, when I attempted to share equal footing with her, she perceived it as a sign of weakness on my part, leading to increasing disrespect despite my efforts to please her. This leads me to the final scenario, a relationship where the wife dominates. It seems your mom opted to take charge. When I failed to meet her standards of a good person, she turned cruel. She dictated which projects should be completed and insisted they meet her standards. Countless times, she initiated family projects only to micromanage every detail, leaving many unfinished because I couldn't tolerate feeling emasculated in my own home. She even instructed me on how to hold tools while working, making it unbearable. In such cases, when the wife dominates, it goes against human nature. I don't comprehend how this dynamic can function. While a husband may remain loving and affectionate, the wife loses respect for him as she exerts control. I believe this dynamic has manifested in our relationship. As I began to resist, Beverly perceived it as a lack of responsibility on my part. By then, she already viewed me as weak. When I refused to be bossed around, she saw me as a rebellious child. I doubt I'll ever regain her respect. This divorce may be my final opportunity to earn it back. I explained to Patty that she would understand my actions when she realized how difficult it was to assert my intolerance for her mother's lifestyle. I advised her that when making significant decisions in her future relationships, such as starting a family or choosing careers and homes, it was crucial for mutual respect to prevail. I emphasized the importance of both Patty and her partner understanding what to expect to avoid the unhappy situation Beverly and I found ourselves in. In response, Patty assured me that she would keep my advice in mind and promised to consider it. Shortly after, the phone rang. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Memorial Hospital. Your wife was in a car accident. She's stable and not severely injured, but she'll be with us, at least for the night." Patty and I drove to the hospital, and I allowed her to enter the room first. She didn't stay long, and afterward, I requested to speak with Bev alone. When she emerged, wearing a gloomy expression, I suspected Patty had spoken harshly to her. "God, you look terrible, Bev," I remarked with a slight grin. "What a dreadful week, huh? First, you lose your marriage, husband, and home. Then you get served with a restraining order and arrested for a felony. Next, you lose some of your expected money, and now your car is totaled, and you're here in the hospital with a broken wrist and a bruised face from the airbag. Seems like this divorce is turning out much better for me." "Freak you," she retorted. "Oh, Bev, where's your old sly charm? Has he come to visit yet? Don't worry, he's probably busy with one of his other 2 women right now." Her complexion turned pale. "You probably didn't know about the others when you started all this, did you? Well, looks like you know now. I wonder how long it will be before he wants you to serve one of them. I never thought of you as a people pleaser, but that might be a good skill to learn considering how much you'll need it in prison." "I'm not going to jail. My lawyer will get these false charges dropped." "Really? You crash my car and threaten my health, and you think you'll get off easy? Because when I spoke to the DA, he made it clear he's gunning for you. He's got photographic evidence and an upcoming election to win. Now he's aiming to look like a hero cracking down on crime. I believe he'll push for the maximum penalty." She simply sat there, staring at me. "By the way, did you decide which car insurance company to contact?" I asked. "Car insurance? What are you talking about? We still have the same old." "Wait, so you didn't bother getting insurance this week when you filed for divorce?" "I removed your car from my insurance. You must have known about this, considering you insisted on having only your name on your Miata. If you didn't get insurance this week, you're in serious trouble. You'll face fines, towing costs, and 3 years of payments. That Miata may end up in a junkyard while you're still paying for it. And since you won't have a job after your felony conviction, you may not need another car. Plus, you'll likely have to cover the medical bills for the guy you hit, and his insurance company will demand payment for the damages. Damn it. But at least you have your own medical insurance, right?" "I'm on yours." No, I removed you from my health insurance on Monday. Didn't you take care of that too?" "Baby, you're in big trouble. The ambulance ride, ER visit, x-rays, doctor's fees, cast for your arm, hospital stay, and follow-up care will cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Hey, speaking of medicine, the other day, I was reminiscing about when you fell ill a couple of years back. Remember? I took a week off to care for you. I held your head while you were vomiting and cleaned up everything afterward. When you couldn't make it to the bathroom in time, I called the doctor and went to the pharmacy to get you medicine. Then, a week later when you felt better, you started scolding me again, insulting me, and calling me names. I wonder how well old Sly will take care of you next time you're sick. Well, it's time for me to call Sly now that you think he's done with his other woman. I wish you a good life." As I left, Beverly sat there crying, but I didn't care anymore. Everything went on as usual for some time. I kept in touch with Lindsay occasionally. She started worrying about Sly's influence over Bev, and gradually, Lindsay distanced herself from her. Then one evening, as I returned home and headed to my front door, I was attacked on the lawn. I was cautious about possible attacks, but I didn't see this one coming. A guy wearing a ski mask knocked the wind out of me, twisted my arm behind my back, and demanded I give him the box of money and tell the DA to drop the charges. I felt helpless, but still had the car alarm remote in my hand. I pressed the panic button, setting off the alarm. Sly got furious, hit me again, and then ran off quickly as the neighbor's porch lights turned on and people started looking out. I yelled for someone to call emergency, and a police officer arrived a few minutes later. I wasn't injured enough for an ambulance, and Sly was long gone. None of my neighbors could identify him, so he escaped punishment for the attack. An even bigger shock came when I told my daughter about it the next day. "Dad, I didn't want to tell you, but I also had an encounter with Sly. Mom called me to talk. I agreed, but insisted we meet away from his apartment. She asked me to pick her up, but when I arrived, she sat me down on their couch. Then Sly came out and talked to me. He said since Mom wasn't coping well with her injuries in bed, I would have to tend to his needs. He claimed she owed him, and I would have to pay for it. I looked at my mother, and she just stared at the floor without saying anything. Sly told me to make her comply. Mom looked at me and pleaded, saying, 'Please, baby, stay with him. It won't be that bad, and I really need you to do this for me.' He then approached me, grabbed my wrist, and tried to force me to stand up, saying we were going to the bedroom. With my right hand on the pepper spray in my purse, I sprayed it in his face when he pulled me away. He screamed, grabbed his face, and I grabbed my purse, attempting to pull my mother out the door, but she resisted and went toward him. I yelled at her to come with me, but she chose to assist him in the bathroom, so I left. I can't believe my own mom tried to set me up with that idiot. I don't know if I can ever forgive her for this." I was boiling with anger, like any father in my situation. Contemplating my Beretta in the bedroom, I almost reached for it. After a while, my daughter reassured me, confirming she wasn't damaged, and advised me to consider the future. I made Patty promise not to walk alone until after the trial and always to have protection with her. She agreed to only date fellow students and never be alone in public. Gradually, I regained my composure. Sly urged me to talk to the DA, but he didn't anticipate the conversation I had. I presented a recording of my daughter discussing Sly and reminded him of Sly's attack on me. The DA inquired if I'd consider leniency toward Bev or dropping the charges. Absolutely not. I insisted on seeking the maximum penalty. Bev is under the control of this manipulative person, and separating them is the only way to help her. A stint in prison might straighten her out, The district attorney agreed, and the trial proceeded. I felt fairly confident at home and work, but there were moments of vulnerability, especially when entering or leaving the garage. However, I was cautious during my commute. Our house sits about 10 miles down the ranch road, with only one turnoff in the next 15 miles. I was well aware of other potential danger zones. During the long drive home, I always had my Beretta with me. One evening, a few days before Bev's trial, I noticed headlights of a pickup truck behind me about 2 miles from home, sending shivers down my spine. Soon, it was tailgating me aggressively, just 20 feet from my rear bumper, going 55 miles per hour. I called emergency on my phone and activated the voice recorder. As I accelerated to 70 miles per hour, the pickup kept pace. Frantically, I requested the emergency operator to contact the detective investigating my assault. The truck continued to tail me for another 5 miles as I narrated the situation. With the pistol lying next to me, I prepared for potential danger. As I approached a bridge spanning a small creek bed, I suspected the driver would attempt to force me off the road. Approaching the bridge, about 100 yards away, the pickup accelerated, indicating its intent to force me off the road. I briefly glimpsed Bev's face in the passenger seat as it pulled up beside me. I braked sharply, causing the car to skid, but maintaining control. Although the truck stopped ahead of me, my quick braking prevented a collision. My car slid to a halt by the roadside, its rear resting on a slope leading down to the creek bed. Exiting the car, I grabbed my weapon, phone, and recorder, descending the steep gravel slope beneath the bridge. As I descended, I noticed the pickup's brake lights illuminate. Navigating in the darkness, I cautiously felt my way under the bridge. Despite the risk of encountering a rattlesnake, I was more concerned about other dangers. Breathing heavily, I sought a secure hiding spot, eventually stopping and tilting the Beretta. I waited anxiously, but heard nothing for a while. Cell phone contact with emergency was lost. Attempting to redial in the dark proved futile due to poor signal reception. I was stuck, uncertain if help was on the way. At least the ominous growl of the pickup truck overhead was absent. I resolved to remain stationary, prepared to spend the night there if necessary. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only 5 or 10 minutes before I heard a siren in the distance, approaching from the same direction as me. Realizing they were far behind, I began walking up the hill, leaving the Beretta under the bridge. Raising my hands as I approached the road, I implored the arriving police not to shoot. Observing 2 cars parked across the road, blocking both lanes, I heard sirens from the other side and saw a pickup truck heading back to the bridge. I stumbled and fell into the mud. While my view was limited, I heard the pickup screech to a stop, and officers ordered the driver to exit and lie on the ground. Other police cars following the pickup stopped behind it. Soon, Bev and Sly were in custody on attempted slaughter charges. Though deeply worried, I returned home, showered, and attempted to sleep to no avail. When your spouse faces multiple felonies, divorce appears remarkably straightforward. The judge expressed sympathy, and Bev and her lawyer offered little resistance. Desperate to minimize her prison sentence, Bev proposed conceding virtually everything in the divorce for assistance in reducing her punishment. During the sentencing hearing, I testified to Bev's prior virtues before falling under Sly's influence. I expressed a willingness to forgive her over time for attempting to end my life. Omitting her likely infidelity and years of torment, I could not interpret her facial expression in court, nor did I speak to her directly. Ultimately, Sly received a lengthy prison sentence. I hope he shares a cell with a burly inmate named Bubba, who finds him particularly appealing. The judge showed more leniency towards Bev, but she won't be eligible for parole for at least 3 years. So it's been approximately 4 years since Bev was incarcerated. The DA's office informed me that she was granted parole about a year ago. I kept waiting to hear from her, knowing she's not in contact with Patty. Revenge seemed promising, but it didn't live up to expectations. I found myself unable to stop dwelling on everything that had unfolded. So, unexpectedly, I reached out to my ex-wife. "Bev, this is Jack. I have something of yours, and I want it back." I phoned the rehab center where Bev resided now. For a few moments, there was no response. "Beverly, I want to give you a shoebox. Can you hear me? Can we arrange to meet so I can return it to you?" I thought she might hang up, but finally she responded, "Where? When? I don't care." We agreed to meet at a neutral location, like a restaurant, or she could come to my house. I suggested Sunday. Are you free on Sunday? After a brief silence, she replied, I'll be there on Sunday. At 2 p.m., the phone rang. How does one prepare to confront their ex-wife, the mother of their child, the woman who attempted to eliminate them, and a convicted felon? I made lemonade and cookies. When Bev arrived, neither of us attempted to shake hands or hug. We exchanged greetings, and I motioned for her to enter the office. Her hair was much shorter than before, and her eyes were stern. She wasn't wearing much, if any, makeup now. At 50 years old, she looked 65. There were drinks, cookies, and a shoebox on the coffee table. She sat down opposite the sofa, and I offered her soft drinks, which she refused. Did she really suspect that I would try to poison her? Well, if you don't want lemonade and cookies, then I suppose all you need is the shoebox and whatever else we have to say to each other. What's the catch, Jack? What do you want instead? Is there anything left? She remained very suspicious. There's no trick, Bev. It's all there, except for a few thousand that I contributed with an equal amount of my own money and gave to Patty as a down payment for her house when she got married. If you wish, she can start returning your share at your convenience. I simply gave her my portion. I could see from Bev's expression that she didn't know Patty was married. Patty has been married for 2 years, and you're already a grandmother. I sensed the tension in her eyes as she struggled with her emotions. The little girl's name is Shannon Beverly Evans. Shannon is the name of her other grandmother. Bev's eyes filled with tears despite her best efforts. Bev, I know you haven't spoken to Patty in a while. There must be a way for you to reconnect. If you want, I can facilitate that. Beverly nodded, tears now streaming down her cheeks. I reached for the box of tissues I had placed on the coffee table. I'll give you the abridged version of our story if you're not ready to leave just yet, I said gently. She wiped tears from her cheek and tried to compose herself. Patty found a great guy named Stan Evans. He's into computers and networks. They seem to click really well. She's a fantastic mom, and they're deeply devoted to each other. Martha and I didn't last long. She's too young for me, and she just needed me temporarily until she could get her life back on track. She found someone else and moved on. I date occasionally, but I end things if it gets too serious. I'm better off solo. I'll stick to being single. There was silence for a while. I'm going to share some thoughts, mainly for my own benefit, but maybe you can glean something useful from them too. I hope so. I couldn't wait to see you in prison. I loathed you and wished you dead many times, but when they locked you up, my feelings started to shift. I found I couldn't revel in my victory anymore, so I let go of my hatred for you, even though you never asked for it. I forgave you because I know you're not entirely to blame. I couldn't understand you until it was too late, and we stopped communicating. We were just bickering. Beverly composed herself and looked up from the floor. She gave me a lost look but remained silent. That's the truth, succinctly and plainly. If you have nothing more to say, and if you're not hungry, I won't keep you any longer. You probably have important things to attend to. She stood up and took the box as she headed toward the front door. For the first time since I pushed her away all those years ago, I called out to her, Beverly, it doesn't matter now, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm curious. Throughout our time together, especially on that last day you were here, it was clear that you saw me as weak. Do you still think I'm a pushover, Bev? She paused with her hand on the doorknob and glanced back at me. She expressed her feelings bitterly, stating that she hated me and believed I had been cruel, asserting that I had ruined her life. After a moment of pause, she added that she didn't consider me to be a pushover. Following this statement, she disappeared from my life permanently.